Right then, back with episode 27 of the Midnight Pod. Arguably my most anticipated guest. I've been trying to fucking sort this for a few months, but the man's too busy living life post-exit. We have Jimmy Hill, who I guess most famously has built and recently exited from Hairburst, which is, well, basically a fucking hair care brand, gummies, shampoos, all that good shit, from up north as well. So I'm definitely fucking biased towards you. Done a few other things as well, haven't you? Like Mr. Blank Teeth and shit, which maybe we can get into. But I guess first question, as always, and there's probably this is an interesting episode because certainly I think for a lot of people in ecom watching, like younger guys, including myself, not to lick your ass, but you've probably done what a lot of people want to do, which is start a brand from scratch, scale it, make it a proper business, which we can talk about, and then made a shitload of money selling it to a big fucking strategic buyer, basically. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that. So yeah, I think an interesting episode. There's like probably three key areas that we'll go into, but yeah, I guess fairly chronologically. And like first question is just, how did you get started really? Like way back.
Way back.
Can dive in.
So probably quite a stereotypical startup journey really. Just depends how far I want to go back. But I mean, when we started the
when
brand,
you literally started in
the
ecom,
brand,
yeah, like right at the start.
Ecom, because ecom, I was an eBay seller for a bit, so I was selling used phones on eBay for like a long period of time, which is a long story. But in terms of like when Hairburst started, I just did it with two friends. We had 4K in savings, we just pulled together, and we bought our first load of product from a manufacturer for like 3K. And then scaled up from there, which is obviously a long journey. But just to give people context, Hairburst now is it's an ecom brand, but it's also a retail brand as well. So we're stocked in 20,000 stores worldwide. So we've got obviously in the UK was our first market. So we've got like Boots, Superdrug, Holland & Barrett, and then in Europe we've got like Sephora. America we've got CVS. In Asia with AS Watson, so it's 20,000 stores globally, which is like half the business, and the other half is the ecom, which is where it all started, which is probably what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, started with 4K, one SKU, and grew it over 9 years.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
That is a long time. Going back to the phone stuff, because I know I saw this on your Instagram, because I actually followed you on Instagram like 3 years ago, which is kind of niche, I suppose, because you don't have like a personal brand, or at least maybe then less so of one. Because I saw you bought a car from Redline, and I'd bought a car from Redline, and it was just like, just follow fucking everyone in the ecom space. But yeah, I saw you worked at Car Phone Warehouse or some shit.
Phones for you.
Yeah, Phones for
which
you.
Which has gone bust now. Yeah.
So what's the story there? Like you mentioned you were selling shit on eBay. I think it was related.
So
I guess that's pre-Hairburst, but
yeah, that's pre-Hairburst. But I wanted to do ecom for probably like after uni. It was like, it kind of became a thing. So I used to play poker online. So I used to play mainly heads up, because I had a few friends that used to play poker and make like quite good money from that. So I used to play mostly heads up on various different poker sites. And my whole ambition was just to make a living doing something on my own. At the time when I started to play poker, the idea was I'd just play poker. I'd be able to go to Thailand, work from my laptop, all that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And then after doing that for like 4 or 5 years, it's very hard to scale that, because it's, unless you invest, like, which is like staking other players, you can't really do it passively. So I was never going to be like, you have to always be the horse basically. So
yeah,
realised I wanted to do ecom, read loads of ecom books, and that was the path I wanted to go to. But in between poker and starting a brand, I had no money, so it was back to work. So I got a job at Phones for You.
Did you go to uni or no?
Yeah, but I did sport at uni because I was always in sport.
Where?
Leeds Met.
Leeds Met, yeah. You know, it's a proper university.
But I was from Scunthorpe originally, which is about an hour away.
Yeah.
And went to Leeds Met 3 years. But again, like when I was at uni, I just played poker all the time. I didn't actually do my degree.
Did you finish the degree though?
Yeah. I didn't even get under a 2-2, a third, is it?
Don't know. Irrelevant.
It's like, basically means it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Because I did want to be a PE teacher. That was like my initial plan. But if you get a third, you can't be a PE teacher.
Yeah,
but by the time I think it was probably maybe 2 months into uni is when I found poker. And then that kind of absorbed my life for like 4 or 5 years. But interestingly, we can get into it later, but poker's a game. People think poker's gambling, but it's actually a game of skill. It's almost like it's like chess with luck involved. So you have to be quite analytically minded, and I think I learned a lot from that when it came into ecom, in terms of like looking at analytics, looking at data, looking at like your own performance, analysing your performance, looking at other players' performance, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think that definitely helped me, even though it wasn't my end result. It did definitely help. What was your question? Leeds. Yeah, went to uni.
Yeah, so starting Hairburst, were you in uni or did you finish uni?
I'd finished. So I finished, did poker for a bit, went travelling, did the Thailand thing, which was like the best time of my life still.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even have a phone then. It was just like, I had 7k in savings, booked my flights, went there for like Thailand and Australia for like 6 to 8 months. And 2 of the guys that I went with, they were co-founders in Hairburst when we first started.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I guess the Hairburst story started, because that's when I was really getting into ecom and learning about it. But in between then I got a job at Phones for You. I was selling, I think it was 16 grand a year with a bit of commission.
So that was after uni, working Phones for You. Yeah, so right. Yeah, fuck. And then you decided just point blank, let's just start a fucking ecom brand.
Well,
you thought about it for a while.
Didn't think about it. At that point, I was conscious of it, but I also probably didn't have I knew that I wanted to sell online, but I didn't have anything to sell, and I wanted to have my own brand, but I didn't know what it was going to be at that point in time. So I was literally at Phones for You, and I just started buying phones off customers and like bagging them up in my car and then taking them and selling them on eBay. So that was like, and I can remember writing, I'd have like a blue diary, and I used to write in the diary, like being quite honest with myself. And I used to write things like you don't know what you're going to end up selling, but you know you want to do ecom, so just like find things to sell. And it was like just like a development thing, and it was just like got to the point where I was getting quite desperate. I was like, I'll just sell anything. So I started by just like literally buying used phones and going through that process of having a product and taking it to the post office. So that was like got me brain going in terms of how that would work. Roll on. I was only there for like 8 months, and then I had a job at a search marketing agency in Leeds as well. So I was just in the sales team, but I was speaking to loads of different brand owners. It was quite interesting. So I'd speak to a brand owner that had, it could sell anything. Like one did sheds, one did like bedding, another one was selling like sports supplements, and you speak to the founder and understand. Like it was the agency mostly focused on like SEO and like more traditional forms of marketing, and I was seeing how much these companies were spending on this like per month, and it was like, okay, that's like a big investment. Like, how do I get my own off the ground? And then social media came around, which was a big blessing for me, and that's where we launched our brand.
And what was the logic to because obviously you don't strike me as a customer of Hairburst. Because for me, like I always think, I don't know, like when I started brands, I was like building shit for me, and then yes, there was other customers. But was it like analytical? Or was it just like, fuck it, let's do this and see what happens, and it worked? Or
so because I had an interest in sport, I always used to be like, I was on My Protein. I dread to think how much I spent when I was younger on My Protein. And that was the brand I always looked up to. Now, by the time it was like, this is like 2013, the brand was already huge. Bulk Powders is a great brand. There's all these other cool brands, and I mean, guys were on Instagram, but in terms of like influencers or like influential pages, it was mostly targeted towards females. So it was like, I understood nutrition, I understood social media at this point, and it was trying to find the right brand and product to fit that, as opposed to thinking about it the other way. So I was like, just imagine just like understood nutrition, understood that it was mostly girls at the time on Instagram. Like, what do I find? So the long way around it, to me, felt quite logical to do a hair supplement, which was the first product.
Yeah. All right. So how old were you then when you decided, fuck it, let's do Hairburst? You would have been, what, I guess 9 years younger than you are now, which is 24?
Yeah. I think I was 23.
And I assume was there like a crossover between like jobs and shit, or did you literally the two of you put some money in and then just say, let's go all in? Like, how did that
So work? I was working at the agency. We'd started the brand aside from that. So I was doing my job, getting back from work, packing the orders. My business partner was working like heavily on getting different influencers like post about the brand, and then like morning, afternoon, night, just like packing the different orders when we had a chance. And then when we sort of hit like a point where we could start to see some potential profitability, that's when I decided to quit work and go full time and pile in. And I can remember it was dead simple, right? We had like one SKU, we were getting traffic in. The traffic was cheap because it was coming from Instagram pages that no one knew was even like an advertising platform at the time. There's probably like Gymshark and a few other like cool brands that were doing it, but not in our sector. We were just dead early with that. But anyway, we were driving traffic to the site for cheap, and conversion rates, we were just watching that like a hawk, because I knew if I could get a conversion rate of like 2+, that I'd make enough money to cover my day job wage that I was getting now. So, I mean, we're going to get into this, but my approach then was like, just cover my wage and get paid. Whereas like a lot of brands now, it's like, which I agree with, is raise money, find investment, and then push on from there. Whereas I was like, just make enough money to then pay myself to then focus full time, which is actually counterintuitive, because really it should go back in. But when you've still got a job, you have to take some salary, right?
What was the first product? First SKU?
Capsule. Hairburst, the Hairburst original formula, which still is one of our best sellers today. So it was like 26 ingredients for all focused on hair.
Yeah. And how were you sourcing that at the time? Because obviously, like, I've recently gone into like consumable shit, and it's a fucking minefield. So like, as a first project in ecom, it seems pretty complex.
We just worked direct as a manufacturer in the UK, but we probably spoke to...
Yo, fellas, quick one. First bit of promo for the pod. You may or may not have heard, I released a fucking ecom course a few months ago. Basically spent like 6 months making it because I was in between businesses, as you probably know if you follow my shit. I must say, 12 hours long, it's fucking quality content. I was going to drop it at like 1,500 quid with some bullshit guru-y webinar and all that rubbish, but as you know, it's not my main thing. I'm working on a new brand right now, very, very fucking much in the trenches, which is why I think it's actually a better course than everything else out there, because it's built on real experience of my brands in the past and my current one. I think it's super, super valuable. If you're interested in ecom, you're already in ecom, and you want it to get into ecom, 0 to 1, starting a brand from scratch, then definitely worth investing in. Link is in the bio of this video, or podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever the fuck you're listening or watching, and enjoy the rest of the pod.
20, maybe, different. Like they want people like MyProtein to work with them and go, okay, we want to try this new SKU, let's have like 50,000 products or like big chunks. Whereas I was going for meetings talking about building out this hair brand that's going to be big, but I've only got $3,000 to buy products. Yeah. So it took me a while to get a manufacturer, but we did eventually get one, and I'm still in touch with the guy who was a sales guy at the time on there. And yeah, it was a factory in the UK. Nice.
And was this all on Shopify even back then?
Yep. Shopify store. Yeah. I mean, it looks horrendous back then, looking back, but it was all through Shopify, yeah.
Yeah. And then where did sales come from? Is it literally organic? Because obviously now it wouldn't be.
Influencers and influencer pages. So we were
entirely.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we had Google Live fairly soon. We were doing some Facebook ads, but actually unsuccessfully at the start. And then at the very, very start, it wasn't even like Instagram influencers, it was pages. I can't remember what was called Nails for You, because I used to work at Phones for You, and I thought it was quite funny. Yeah. But it was just a page that had like 100,000 followers, posted loads of like new nail designs or whatever. But they would take payment. So you'd be like 50 quid, 100 quid, whatever, to post the brand. And that would drive traffic to the site. Yeah. And there was hundreds of them. There was loads in America, loads in the UK, loads internationally. Tens of thousands of these pages that existed. They're probably still around today, but I don't know if they're a viable marketing channel.
Yeah, shit's definitely changed.
Do you know anybody who had any pages? Or did you ever build a page?
No, I didn't, to be fair. I know who's it, Social Chain, that started with all that, apparently, like all that early sort of shit. Yeah. This is a bit before my time, actually, like 2013, 14. I would have been still in bloody sixth form.
And one of our co-founders, he had a page called Beards and Tats. Yeah. I just found it was a bit weird. I found it a bit weird at the time. Like he had this Instagram page and a Twitter page, and he just posted like cool looking guys with like beards and like tattoos. And it was like, that was the page. Yeah. But people followed it for like tatty ideas or whatever.
Yeah.
And that caught my attention because it was like, I think he got to like 50, 60,000 followers on his page. And I was like, well, this is a page for that, but is there a page for this or a page for this?
Like back in the day when people got Facebook famous rather than like Instagram famous and shit.
Yeah, Facebook pages,
when massive. There was organic reach.
Massive, yeah.
Yeah. So the first year of the business then, like what sort of numbers were we talking? And was it literally one SKU for the first year or did that quickly expand?
It quickly expanded, but we went too quick with that. So we didn't do $1 million in our first year. I think we went past $1 million in our second year. But we were super profitable because we were paying these pages and it didn't cost much to get traffic. So when we actually figured it out and it was like we started to really get the pages going and we were making good money at that point. So within like the first year I'd quit my job. I was working on it full time. One of my two co-founders, they were then on it full time as well.
Yeah.
So we didn't have an office. We were just working out. We all lived together, so we had the same house. We were packing in the garage. But I think probably somewhere like mid through the second year, it was like, okay, this is working. We're now making some good money, but it's a huge opportunity to build a proper brand because I knew how much traffic like traditional companies in any sector, like I said, like bedding and like garden materials and all this, like I see the traffic. So it was like, I knew our traffic was strong and I knew we were paying much less than the competition.
Yeah. So
it was a case of attacking it quite hard from there.
Yeah. And then at what point did you start running like Facebook ads and shit? Was that quite a way after that or? Because that still would have been pretty early for those platforms.
So even now, like our Facebook ads strategy isn't as good as other brands. I mean, I know you've got a big background in that and you were really successful with it, but I think because we were so successful with like the influencer side and the retail side, it kind of took like a second holding. So, I mean, we started Facebook ads pretty much straight away, but we didn't have what I have now and what like we speak about is like having a data-driven approach to the marketing. Like when we first started, we didn't understand any of that. So we kind of grew into that over time.
Yeah. And at this point, is it literally just you and did you have staff or was it literally the founders?
So yeah, I'd probably say halfway through the second year, we started to invest in staff. But again, like I always say like, if I did it again, I'd go much harder, but because it was the first proper money that we were making, we were taking a lot out. And so again, like, I mean, we did invest in staff, but we were really profitable compared to other brands. And I always kept everything super lean. Like when we got our first office, it was £350 for a month.
Yeah, fucking up north.
Yeah, so it was like nothing, you know.
Yeah, so it's interesting that this was your first e-com thing you'd ever done, right? Because I mean, obviously you kind of dabbled around in like selling phones and shit.
I actually looked at doing some Amazon stuff as well. I was trying to find something. But I was just like playing around. This is the first one I took like really seriously, I guess. Yeah, because I feel like now, I mean, like starting a brand now, if you don't have any experience, I feel like it would be fucking difficult. I think, and I know you've mentioned that before on like Instagram or something. Unless you need more money than you did in the past for sure. I mean, I even know that, and more experience, I think. I think with experience you can raise money like I've done, but you know if you don't have experience or money, I think now pretty fucking impossible. Not impossible, but like probably I don't know, a lot harder than even for me it was a few years ago with like some of my earlier brands and shit. Because I originally started with dropshipping. Did that ever cross your mind? Yeah.
Because obviously you went straight into buying stock, which is a pretty ballsy move.
Yeah, but we were playing around with like. I was on Alibaba, like trying to find some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I looked at, this is random as hell. I was looking at doing like heated, or like cooling blankets for beds. Like I could literally remember like one night I was like, don't know, in like English summer, you know, like when you're away and like on holiday, whatever, you have aircon, but you don't have that at home. Don't know, I just used to like look at random stuff, but I never really committed to anything. Apart from when we did Hairburst.
Yeah.
So I was always looking, but it does take, and when you're talking about like starting, I think you do need to, you're always better off to commit and just go for something and learn along the way, as opposed to like, because I had a good year where I'm just like looking around trying to find something to do, but it's quite hard to get started. Once you have the momentum, it starts to fulfill itself and you like set a fire and it just goes. But making that call? Because like, just from like your history, like you did dot around a bit, didn't you? Like you've done so much stuff.
Fucking ADHD spec. Yeah, it's only
which
now.
Is a skill set in itself, but
yeah, it is. It's like a high risk skill set. Because like, I mean, I've got one particular mate who's definitely like the most successful don I know for that age, and he's only ever done like the one thing. And similar to kind of what you're saying, whereas my problem, maybe it's like a blessing and a curse, but like I feel like I could start a brand in any category. But then that means it's like, fucking, which one do I choose? You know what I mean? And I was a lot more analytical with my new brand, because I actually, for the first time ever, sat down and was like, okay, let's not just start something randomly. I was literally like, kind of what you said before. I was like, well, I know this and this now. Like, this didn't work. You know, what ticks this and this box, potentially? You know, like, what am I interested in enough to work on as well? And what is like a market, you know, all this sort of thing. And then, came to the new shit I'm working on. But now I need to stick with one and fucking like iterate rather than change. Was there
any ones that you did in the past that you thought you wish you stuck around a bit longer?
Yeah, so I had a clothing brand, but actually before I got into dropshipping, back in like 2016 when I was at uni, we had an office and shit. And that was, I think we did like a few $100,000 a month. Not a few $100,000 a month, sorry, no, like a few $100,000 over about 6 months. And I was like, we were 20 in uni, like that was fucking good. And we were like designing clothes and shit, holding it in a 3PL. And then me and my mate who'd started it, we just fell out basically, and it just disintegrated. But I spoke about that on episode 23 with him, Ollie, who's now running an agency. But it just chopped and changed so much. And then I was like, well, fuck, I just want to travel and make money. And then I got into dropshipping, and there's a whole episode that's gone out about this by now. But because I don't know if I had a specific goal when I got started. Like, did you? I mean, obviously you said travel. Just to travel.
Literally just travel. I know it's like become like a thing now with online brands, but for me it was read the 4-Hour Work Week, and that pretty much that changed my life, I would say. And I'm going to say the 4-Hour Work Week, and everyone's going to think, oh, maybe I'll read that book, but I mean, it's not the best book I've ever read, for sure. But in terms of like the time I was in, this is like, I mean, it was fairly outdated then in terms of like actual strategies, but like what he used to do is he would test various different concepts using Google Ads. The way we did it was through social, and the way you do it is through social. So it has gone on, but in terms of like the core principles of building an e-com brand, I think there's a lot still in there that's useful for people. But basically I read that, and it was like, I think he said he was doing 30k a month or something in sales. And I came at the time reading that thinking, wow, that's like amazing. Like, I'd love to do something that did that. But in terms of like just like basic margins, understanding the way that an e-com brand works, that was really useful for me at the time, because that was like one of my first like real looks into it. So I read business books and stuff, like I read Richard Branson and all those like classics, but that was like the first sort of e-com thing that I really read. And I think it really stuck with me. And he was, to answer your point, it was what was the goal? That was the travel, because that's what he was doing.
And like, how quickly did that change? Like, so like, I don't know, you said 2 years in, you reached like 7 figures in sales. Did you start to think maybe there's like, were you even thinking about the potential scale, or was it just like, oh, this is better than when we started, let's keep trotting along? Like, was it just getting on with things?
Like the buzz of, and even
because
now,
I feel like a lot of people now just speak about starting a brand to sell, rather than starting something.
We did not do that.
Do you know what I mean?
We did not do that, even though that's what we've done. That wasn't the plan.
That's what I mean. It's the irony.
Like, I'm trying to think when it actually changed, but I mean the buzz of, like, you'll know, but from like working a job to having like a life ambition just for like working for myself, earning enough money to travel to Thailand, which costs absolutely nothing. Like, you can stay in a hotel for a tenner and it's half decent. To have that as an ambition, to then within like a year, like fulfilling my dream, like that buzz was like unbelievable. Like, I can remember, like, obviously when you work in a job you have like 4 weeks holiday, so to then go to a point where I had like, obviously I was accountable to my business partners and I wanted to do the best I could possibly for them, but it was a case of we kind of like achieved it. So I think when people talk about the exit and they talk about like, when they get exited, it's like you have this like gold medal syndrome and all this like kind of stuff. For me, that happened then, like literally like 7 years ago, because my actual goal was just to be able to travel and be free, basically, and freedom. And that's, even now, it's like freedom's my number one thing. So the goal was that was achieved within the first 2 years, let's say. And then it was a case of we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. We can travel, we can do all this cool stuff. But it was, I think we were like surrounded by the opportunity of building a real brand. Because you kind of go through, because I came from almost like similar to your background, where it's like, it's not like I really want to build this particular brand. It was, I want to find something that's like my thing that I do, and it gives you money and freedom, right? That's like the overall goal. So then it kind of, we realized how quickly we were growing. It was like, well, wow, if we can, and I started to see if like a competitor sold, like My Protein sold to the Hook Group, another competitor sold for like a big money, and I was like, okay, so you're looking at potentially 5, 6, 7 years worth of hard work to be free for the rest of my life. And I thought it's probably time to get my head down and like really knuckle down.
Yeah. And how far into the business do you think, because we spoke about this before, and I feel like it's the stage that a lot of people struggle with. I mean, I've certainly struggled with it and not really got there, I feel like, is like turning it from like, I don't know, kind of a bedroom brand that's doing pretty well, which a lot of guests I've had on here are kind of at, and I've been at in the past, to like, I guess, a real business. And I guess it's different now maybe, because like you can have a real business and still be like fully remote and shit, but was there a point where I guess you noticed the opportunity, like you said, head down? What actually changed? Or was it gradual? And what were those
I understand
changes?
the real business thing, because like looking back, it kind of, there's no difference from a consumer's point of view. From like a founder's point of view, you see it quite clearly. Like, let's say you set up a trainer brand, say. There's like, from your point of view, you'd think, okay, I've got a trainer brand, I'm doing a few million in sales, but it's not a real brand because Nike's a giant. That's like a real trainer brand.
Yeah.
But from a consumer's point of view, like a lot of consumers don't understand where the brand came from, and everything starts from a low point. And I think you can build a real brand in any category. I think there's a book on it. I didn't actually read it fully, but I think it's called Category Killers. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No.
But it talks about like each individual category, like nailing down a category, which we've talked about before. Like we obviously nailed down the hair category, and that's what we focused on, but there's basically every aspect of business, and like all these brands like P&G or Unilever own, like detergent or whatever, it's just another brand, right? And it's also not even, it doesn't have a face, like it doesn't have a founder story, so everything can be disrupted and become like a real brand. But it's just, I guess it's a case of like scale. And I think for us, we got quite quickly into retail as well. So that makes you realize like, okay, so there's this real brand that's like there, and then there's us next to it, and then they're selling more than us, but we're quite close behind, you know? So you can't, there's not really a difference. I think you kind of, what, is that answer your question?
Yeah,
I know what you're saying, because there is like a distinct difference, but at the same time, there isn't really.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess the one thing I've always thought about is how do you become appealing for someone to actually buy it? And I know this is like, we can talk about that later on, but even like with the new thing I'm starting, I very much don't want to fall into the category of, oh, it's just another fucking copycat brand, like, you know, does a few million in sales like every other fucking brand that's started by anyone with like a half decent brain. Because I feel like it's quite easy to get to like 2, 3, well, not easy, but very doable to get to sort of a few million in revenue now with e-com. If you know what you're doing, you got a bit of money behind you.
So this is interesting, right? I would categorically say that from your side, you're saying that, but from what I've seen, I'd say that's the hardest bit. So you can actually do the hardest bit, potentially.
Well,
like,
yeah,
honestly,
I've done it twice. Well, but then just fucked it with the last one, which took everything down.
That literally is the hardest bit. Like, if you can take a concept, get it to a few million in sales, and then I think what you're saying is like, then where's the next stage.
Yeah, because so
that's the first
that's the thing that I was getting to the point where I was trying to do very consciously, but it was terrible timing because in 2020 ended up having 2 brands, and then if I hadn't had the fucking neon one, whatever, the other one could have been that one, but whatever. And then I was very consciously trying to, like, I was actually dealing with a advisory firm that was kind of like friend of a friend sort of thing and whatever, but like they were trying to help me make it more corporate, was like the terms they'd use, because ultimately, like, I was just a fucking lad on a laptop in a kitchen doing like $1 million a month in sales at one point.
Yeah.
And granted, half of that was like drop shipping with the neon stuff, but yeah, like, that's actually quite a big scale, do you know what I mean? But I didn't have any employees, I had no one of any experience actually guiding me to do anything. And I was a bit like, and I was like, fuck, well, I know something's got to change. I was kind of aware of that, probably even more aware of that now, but I didn't even know where to start, because I was like, and I guess it comes from hiring, I think, and that's why I never quite got right.
Yeah.
Because I always had a massive element of imposter syndrome.
You say hiring,
like,
but like...
hire a COO that's 40. I was like, well, fucking hell, why would they listen to me?
Yeah, I mean, we started, like, my COO now, he's like, he's going to kill me if I say the wrong number. I reckon he's 42 now, so when he probably joined us, he was like 39, 40. And I was like in my young 20s, but hiring is a massive key. But more important than that, like, you don't need to have full-time staff. You could do it with freelancers. Like, I know some brands that have, spoke to a brand today that's like doing amazing, but it's only got like 6 freelancers behind it,
Yeah.
And it's because people is just time, and if time's used correctly in the right areas, then that's how you can scale. But what's most important is, especially with e-com, is like, how are you driving traffic, what's it costing, and what are they buying, and what's the lifetime value of that customer, and that's increased by like repeat purchase or more product. That's literally it. And you can go from, there's no if you can build on that, there's no way it wouldn't scale.
Yeah,
because it's not, I understand, like, hiring, that's only when you hire, you just acquire time. Yeah. So if you can learn to like manage people and use their time most effectively, then, because you can't do it on your own. And like, I was dead lucky because I had my 2 best mates, right? And like, the more time that goes, it's like, I was so lucky with that. And even now, like, one of my co-founders has left the business, but the one who's still at the moment, Gwill, is like, we're just a perfect match, because I'm not very good at detail. I quite like the big picture stuff, but he's very happy to get his head down and like, he grafts his ass off. So like, we kind of have this like approach where like, I'll probably have like 6 or 7 ideas, and together we'll like nail down like 2, but he's like really good at like hammering things through to the end, whereas I'm like quite all over the shop. So I was lucky with that, because we didn't need to hire staff, because we had 3 of us at the time. Like Matty, who left early, he was like dead creative as well. So especially for you, like being a solo founder, I know you've got great advisors around you and like people and stuff.
This time around, yeah.
You're gonna have to hire, because you can't do it on your own.
Right, I want to pick up that point. You said you reckon 0 to $1 million or whatever is
Hardest bit.
Than, I don't know, 1 to 30 million. Do you actually think that?
100%.
I mean, yeah, I've got no evidence otherwise. It's interesting.
So by that time, you've created a brand, you've got the concept, people are buying into the product, like, you have customers. So if you can have 1,000 customers, why can't you have 5,000? If you can have 5,000, why can't you have 10,000? If you have 10,000, why can't you have 100,000? And before you know it, you're a global brand. So it's like, if you can prove that concept, I mean, especially nowadays, that can still be wrong, because you can raise money, you can acquire customers for too much money, so you can artificially acquire customers at a big loss, and you can still achieve scale. But is it going to become a big brand, or is it just pure money's going to force it through? Whereas what you've done, which is before with no financial backing and done it yourself, you've built something to a certain size, and it's just a case of like doing more of the same, if you like, or like adding more products or increasing the ad budget, So what's happened with other brands that you've seen that get to a certain size? What stops them from growing, would you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say, because like, if that's the easiest part, why is it that you see so many brands do a few million in revenue? You don't see that many do 10 plus, and you certainly don't see that many do like 30 plus million in revenue. I don't know, I mean, yeah, I've never got to that level yet.
I guess it depends on the concept.
I feel like it, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think a lot of brands could get to like 10 mil plus. Like, I feel like anything could, if you do it well. But doing it well is the hard part. I think that's probably, I mean, I learned the hard way that not having a proper team and having having proper experience on board, whether that's just even from a financial perspective, which is probably the area that I fucked up the most, to be honest. You know, having management accounts that are 3 months late from an overpriced old school accountant that doesn't understand the business model, all that sort of shit. And then, you know, having an Amex that fucking runs up a large number. That was definitely where I got it most wrong. So yeah, I think, I mean, that's why, fucking annoying dog. That's why I have gone down the investment route primarily, because like, I don't think you even need 250 grand to start a brand. Like, you don't at all. Like, you could start a brand. I could have started that brand for probably 10 grand, which most people can get together. You know, I certainly had 10 grand. I wasn't completely fucked. But the main logic was actually by getting people to invest money, then I've got invested interests and intentions from smart people. So 3 of the people that invested are my mates, all of which are fucking smart cunts. I'm fortunate to have a good network in that respect, and they all run econ brands, like 10 million pound plus econ brands. Yeah. And then 2 of the other guys aren't in econ specifically, but they've been down the whole. They've both made a shitload of money in other areas by like raising money, and more like the corporate side can kind of add that like financial perspective, I suppose. So it seems like a pretty good deal. It almost feels like I'm getting paid to get told what like helped, kind of. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's taken me fucking 7 years of trying a bunch of different things to realise that actually I can't do it all myself, even though I probably still ignorantly think that, you know, I could, because I'm pretty good at a lot of stuff when it comes to ecom. Not so much like the finances for sure, but on the front end at least. And obviously, yeah, when you start something yourself, you have to be good at everything. I'll be decent. Yeah. But then my problem has been not letting go to let someone else do it.
Delegation.
Yeah. But then it's like, by definition, can't fucking scale. So yeah, that's what I think. But why do you think most brands can't get past that initial, like maybe a few million in revenue?
I mean, it does depend on what category you're playing in. So like, is it a business or is it a Facebook ad business? Is like a different thing. Yeah. So like, say if you sell, I don't know, say if you have a generic product, like, I don't know, let's just say t-shirts, for example, and you can drive a visitor, or you can drive a purchase for like 30 quid, and you use Facebook ads, and your t-shirt's 40 quid, and it costs a £5. So you've got like a £5 margin on per product. So you just ramp the ads up and like sell as much as possible. But what is that customer actually getting? And are they going to repurchase? So like, if you don't have any more products than that, then they're not going to come back. Is it actually a good quality product? So if it's a good quality product, they'll probably come back and use the same brand. Yeah. All the other things that go into it are important, but it comes down to the fundamentals, I think. I don't actually know that much about it, but you know the Neon Beach stuff that you did? Is it called Neon Beach?
Yeah.
Is that right? So,
fucking horror story.
Like how many, so you obviously scaled that to a good size. How many people buy neon signs? Like loads. You've got about 8 in here, I think. But like at some point, like especially a buyer is going to look at that and go, okay, well, how big is this market? And is it like a trend driven thing?
I still think there can be £1 billion revenue neon business. Yeah. I honestly do. Yeah. It's not been made yet. I'm not going to do it, unfortunately, but
that's that kind of one. Is like, if you buy one, do you need 2? If you buy
it's
two,
very high AOV, which is great, but it's
Yeah.
problematic in a lot of other areas.
Yeah. And like, what was the cost margin for those?
Like 60%. It's a decent margin.
Yeah. Because you saw that with the bedding industry, like there's all these D2C like bedding companies came out, which did absolutely
like
amazing.
Casper, Eve, fucking everyone's name.
So like the revenue goes through the roof because every order's like 600 quid. But then...
And they can spend 500 to get a customer.
Spend 5 minutes to get a customer, but how many beds do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
So everyone dives in it raises loads of money. They do amazingly successful, but I don't know. I'm assuming
they lose money forever until they get acquired or IPO or some bullshit.
So to answer your question about why don't others scale, I think it is just down to the category it's in, like the skill of the founder. Like if you can, and I had a conversation with a lady today who's got like a really cool idea for a new brand, and she was like asking me like, what do I need to focus on? And I think, and she's in the process of raising a lot of money.
Yeah.
And like my concern is when someone raises a lot of money, is like, you go, okay, so I've got my product, and as a founder, it's like, I'll use an agency for ads, I'll use an agency for manufacturing, I'll use an agency for branding, I'll use an agency for web development. And that's definitely not going to work, because what you need to understand is if you're building a brand like Hairburst or like what you're going to do in the future, which is a consumer brand, you're not the manufacturer. Like web design's like a one-off like thing you need to do, but really what you are is a marketer. But that's it. Like you drive revenue for that brand. So that's the main focus. So I said to her today, I was like, you need to get into the detail of whether it's their influencer marketing, Facebook ads, TikTok content, whatever. Like the job of a founder for these types of businesses is to market. So if they don't understand that, they're going to struggle to scale or teach other people in the team to do the same skill. And that's why you can launch like 5 or 6 different brands, because you understand Facebook ads, which you can apply to TikTok ads. So if you just apply that to anything.
One thing I think I realised, and be careful not to fucking call anyone out, but I feel like you can have all the fucking degrees and MBAs and XYZ on paper in the world, but if you don't have that like entrepreneurial creative initiative, it's maybe one way of putting it, like it just ain't gonna work. Like I feel like you can hire those roles way easier than you can hire, as in like I don't think like an accountant who's wants to start a brand as a founder is going to work, whereas Yo fellas, quick one. You may or may not have noticed there's been a bit of merch, so to speak, in recent episodes. We've got 2 different things. We've got some of the retro style OG Neon Beach posters that I designed like 4 years ago. You may have seen that on my Instagram. And then we've got some of the best-selling OG viral style neon signs that basically did start that entire craze about 2 years ago now. So yeah, if you want to add something to your home office, your living room, just anywhere sick basically that you want to add that extra thing to and support the channel, then you can check that out. Link is in the bio, midnight.co/shop. And yeah, just an aesthetic item to complement the process, I suppose. Cheers for watching and enjoy the rest of the pod. You know, like every founder I know in an ecom perspective started because they had like a genuine interest in the product or broadly marketing, and then you kind of figure out the other bits later. But I feel like it's the founders that don't figure, and the businesses and brands that don't figure out the other bits, i.e. like the logistics, like you were saying, and like the finances, like the less glamorous shit. Because everyone goes on YouTube and teaches themselves ecom now. Do you know what I mean? Like you're 18 or whatever, you Google how to make money online, e-commerce.
So what brought you to learn how to do Facebook ads?
It was literally just a natural progression. I was in a Facebook group and then literally self-taught back in like 2015. And this was back when it was so cheap. And then you build up. And then it's like experience breeds confidence. Because... Do you know what I mean? I think part of the problem...
Compound interest of confidence, almost. Because once you start to get the sales through, it's a drug and then it takes you. It's like, you know?
Yeah, because like even now, it's been really frustrating because I've not woken up looking at a Shopify dashboard for like the past 9 months now. And that was my life before, like fucking first thing in the morning, last thing at night. But because I know I've been to that scale before, it's like, of course I could do it again. It's the same principles apply. I'll just do it better now, and hopefully more sustainably.
But something drove you to, because I had this conversation with Lewis from Gymshark, who I did his podcast just after the deal, and we was having a conversation around like, because he's quite, you can tell from like how he speaks, he just like dives in. Yeah. And I think you're a bit like that. You'll just like dive in. Yeah. Whereas I don't. Well, for whatever reason, I like to really like learn loads before I try something, which is probably, it's like a bit of a slower way, but it's maybe why I've also just like happy to stay with like one brand for a period of time, maybe. Because like you're probably looking around seeing like 10 different things that you could do and apply that skill set, whereas it's a bit different for us. But yeah, I think because his point was you just need to dive in and you have to be like able to do that. But I always thought that I needed to see something or learn something before I did it. But something obviously drove you to learn the Facebook ads. Because that, going back to the reason why I'm saying it, is like, there's a lot of founders that don't know that. So like they will get a Facebook ads agency, and me and you know that if you just have a product and go to an agency, it's very unlikely to work. One, because you've got to pay the agency, which is probably your whole margin. And two, they definitely can't do it as good as you can.
Yeah, I think, well, I've worked with so many agencies, and like, I definitely won't be running my own Facebook ads for my new brand, but having done it, I can like smell bullshit.
You can manage the agency.
You've got the context.
Yeah.
Because, I think it's super important. That's why I would always say, like, I will definitely do the customer service myself for at least a month. Because I need to know it better than anyone. I need to know every little thing better than everyone. Which is what I've tried to do in the past. And yeah, if it wasn't for fucking Neon, it would have been fine. But even like finances, like I say, I'm not good at finances. I mean, I have a basic understanding of a P&L, obviously. Like, yeah, maybe less so on like cash flows and shit. But yeah, I think people seem to forget, like, I mean, like, even comments like the sort of DMs I get from this podcast, which is, the audience is genuinely younger, like younger than me, even like early 20s, whatever. And people will be like, how do I do this? How do I do this? I think there's just like, people forget that you have to have skills to start a business, an e-com business of any type. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people, and I was going to ask you this, because a lot of people now, I think, get into like e-commerce and Shopify because it's like the new fucking buzz thing. Yeah. Especially like since COVID. It's like online, like, let's make online money and drive a Lambo. But obviously it's not that. And like when you started, it was before that was all like cool on like Instagram and shit. Whereas now it's like everyone and their fucking dog has got an e-com brand or a store of some sort. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so I think now maybe a lot of people are getting into it that don't actually have a genuine passion for like the fundamentals, like marketing, product, branding. Because I used to draw logos. I used to design logos. That was literally it, and that became a website, which became my first e-com brand. And it was like a gradual progression. So like even now, like, I do all my own branding and shit. Because that's where I started. Whereas people now, I feel like, not everyone, but potentially they're starting with, I want a fucking Eurus, so I should figure out how to make this online thing work. And then that's probably not a sustainable interest. Whereas for me, I've not been sustainable on one thing, but it's always been e-com. Like, that's just the one thing I've always wanted to do and have done. But yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with that question. But I guess to bring it back to Hairburst, was there a period when you noticed it, like you intentionally made it more formal, like, I don't know, maybe brought in like a COO, an FD or whatever, and how deep into the business was that, and what was the sort of scale at, and what was the impact of that?
It started to become, so I always sort of, going back to start, we're literally like 3 guys, like 23, 24. It was so much fun. Like, we lived together, we worked together, and we started to bring staff in, and it was like, I had to just take on like the serious guy role, because I was like, otherwise everyone's just like loads of mates just having a great time. And it was that to start with, and it was like, we're buzzing because everyone loved working there. We're all very engaged with the staff, and we were like growing the team. Like, now we've got, I think it's close to 50 people now. And we're still the same, but you do have to put a level of like, I don't know, steadiness in there. So our first senior hire was Matt. So he came in as our chief commercial officer, and he was like quite good because he was a bit older, had more experience working in like corporate cultures and stuff. And we kind of did go through that phase. So when you're talking about real brand, I think it was a few senior hires do sort of make you realise a bit, especially when you're in your young 20s. But when you talk about the imposter thing, I don't think I ever had that.
Interesting.
I don't think I ever had that. I was like, you kind of just, after a few years, you just, I don't know, see a few other young successful people. And I suppose going back to when I was working in an agency, you kind of meet these business owners, and I had the reverse thing. So I'd like meet a business owner, and the business might be doing like 10 mil or whatever, selling sheds or like bedding, like, and I'd be sat there thinking like, why are you not marketing through social media? Like, why have you not got an Instagram page? And I always just started to get confidence from that and think I could do it better. So
if they can do it, you can do it.
So I kind of had the reverse thing where I had like a lot of confidence from that, as opposed to like thinking I couldn't. I don't know. Maybe that was, but your journey takes like different stages, and that was like a big thing for me. So maybe that's what stopped that from happening. Maybe because I know that's quite common, especially for like young founders. But yeah, to answer your question, when did it get more serious? I think just a few more senior hires. Like when I say we went through the stage of like wanting to make a bit of money to travel and all that kind of stuff, when we realised we were onto something, it kind of like changed your mindset a little bit. Yeah. Like imagine if you had a brand that was doing, like you said, to get to like 2 or 3 mil rev, and it's just you and a few freelance, whatever. But then you can see how to get to like 10.
Yeah, because
you'd probably like think, oh shit.
That's exactly what I'm thinking now. So I used to, I guess like did the whole fucking Bali thing and all that, and that's sick. And then spent too much money on like stupid cars, whatever. But now, it's very, I don't know, I feel like I'm running out of time almost, which is probably toxic but also motivating. It's like, fuck, if I actually want to do it big, I've got to like focus properly, get this next one right. Because if I don't get the next one right, like fucking hell, who's going to get it right? Sort of
what do you mean by running out of time? Because that's bollocks.
Well, yeah, honestly, because I'd always told myself, I'd like be retired by 30, whatever, like, but I guess retired in my head was like 100 million quid. When now I realise it's not that. But I don't know. Yeah, it's probably just like, it's a bit of a chip on my shoulder. It's always been a bit of a chip on my shoulder, I think. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to get fucking rich doing something I like, innit? And it was never about the money either. Like, kind of like you were saying, for me, I've always, I mean, you definitely have that. I don't at this stage, but like the freedom. Because, like, even when I was younger, I just like, I don't know, I just wanted to go to cool places and do interesting shit, which requires a monetary fucking form. Do you know what I mean? It was never like, I want to make money so I can be a cunt. Like, just like freedom and excitement, and money is the vehicle that allows that.
But when you talk about time, like I've got friends who are like my age, like I'm 32 now, and they've like, just from having conversations, like maybe they've worked in a job for like 5 or 6 years, and they might sometimes people say things like, oh, like I wish when I was younger I did like a business, and I'm like, you're so young, man. And like I think it's probably partly due to like Instagram and things like that, but I'm sure I read this stupid stat and it's going to be completely wrong, but I'm sure like the average age of a successful business startup is like, the founder's like 37 or something.
Yeah, I think I read
that. Like
somewhere.
Literally. And then like, if you just look at things like that, you'll probably look back in like 10 years time and be like, fucking, I was so young and I was thinking those things. Because I say it to my friends now, I'm like, you could literally spend, I mean, you do have to allocate time, that's the thing. And as you get older, you get, obviously, people get married, have kids, whatever, and it takes you time, and then you get more involved in the job that you're doing or whatever. But if you can find like an hour a day just to like develop yourself and learn things that we've been discussing, like Facebook ads, influencers, whatever, anyone can do it at any age, like literally anyone. So if you think you're running out of time, you're wrong. And even if it's not this one, it's the next one. Like
it'd be this one.
You're probably a bit
feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, no, it's definitely like social pressures. It's also because, I mean, like I've definitely got an unusually successful friend group, like especially given like certain people younger than me, like some older, which is good. But I guess, like I'd rather be like the small fish in a big pond than a big fish in a small pond, do you know what I mean? Which is like why I very intentionally like moved to London a few years ago, all that sort of shit.
I did the same thing pretty much for that reason.
Yeah, I think I think if you're, I don't know, into self-development and shit, you don't want to be everyone telling you you've made it, but you've only made it in Scunthorpe or your colleagues, do you know what I mean? Whether it's just a different culture and a different pool of people. But yeah, I'm probably that affects myself time-wise.
How do you think that affects you? So does it make you feel more pressure because some of your friends are doing like really well? Or does it motivate you to think, shit?
It's definitely net beneficial for sure. Yeah. Like there was someone on Twitter I was reading. I started using Twitter loads. It's like I'd rather all my mates made more money than me, because not that it's all about money, but like in a business sense, because then it's like, fuck, I'm the one that needs to keep up, rather than being, I don't know, in circles where that's not the case, I suppose. Yeah, I think it's a net benefit for sure. Also, like, if they're genuine friends, like, which the friends I'm referring to mentally are, like, it's not about the money. Like, if they're, you know, if they've had a good year, they'll pay for something, and vice versa, which has kind of gone on now recently, but I'm not going to name names. But yeah, I think it's a net benefit for sure. Like, so many people message me on the pod actually saying, how have you got such a good network? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know, just be honest with people and have a few drinks with them in irrelevant scenarios, usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Like, even fucking meeting you before this, I think I just DM'd you, didn't I? Like, if you don't ask, you don't get, sort of thing. Same with people.
Yeah.
Like, girls, guys, business, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've always been just quite friendly in that respect.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's a good thing. But I'm probably not running out of time, but I do put pressure on myself because of certain circles and shit.
I did have the same thing where I didn't think I was running out of time, but I had like almost like an element of like restless discontent in like my current situation. And but that's the driving force behind learning how to make it work. You definitely need a bit of that. I think if you're and you have that now, so like whether it's because what's happened in the past, or like, you know, you can do it but you just haven't found the right thing, or this like next thing's like really got you up for it and you're like really excited, whatever it is, you need to be driven, right? You can't just, you have to have some element of like a bit of a chip on your shoulder or something to like drive you.
Yeah.
And I think
I feel like I've got an even bigger chip on my shoulder recently, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a driver. Like some people, like it's always like hard to figure out like, where does drive come from? It always comes from something. Whether it's a drive to like win at sport, learn something, like learn how to do business or whatever, you have to have it from somewhere. And you've obviously got that from potentially your past, or like you said, being surrounded by great people and it gives you confidence or whatever, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, do you think that, I'm kind of going off tangent, but we'll come back. Do you think like that entrepreneurialism is genetic? Like, do you think it's nature or nurture, basically?
So I don't think I was a natural entrepreneur, if you like. Like, I never sold like sweets at school or did like the lemonade stand or anything like that. Like, I just wanted to play football and have a laugh with my mates. Yeah. Think I like winning at stuff and I like being competitive about stuff. So I'm almost like, I manufactured it in my life. Like, I realised at like 18, right, if you want to live like a full life, you don't need like 100 million or whatever. You just need enough money to be able to cover freedom, basically. And then that became like my ambition. It wasn't like I don't know, you know, you had like a lot of people, especially probably econ people, have that story. Like, I don't know if you had that story where he was like, one of my co-founders, he was like that. He used to sell like Mars bars at school or whatever, and used to make like enough money to buy his new football boots and stuff like that. He was like quite a traditional entrepreneur. I never had that. But I realised that you have to have some element of money to live a full life. So that became like my plan, and then I figured that out, which is part of my personality. When So to answer your question, I nurture for sure.
Yeah, probably is to an extent. Probably, I guess there's exceptions to every rule in there, and there's probably so many different cases either way.
But I wouldn't say I'm like, it's like, again, like the current business partner who's still in the business now, he probably is more of a natural entrepreneur than I am. But like, where most businesses I see it now is like, it's almost like baking a cake. So you have like, what do you need? You need like time and energy, funds, and an idea. And like, to be able to see that from like a view, like I said before, like I'm kind of all over the place, but I've got quite an analytical personality, so I could almost like see that. So like, time and energy, idea, capital, and like just putting the right things together as like almost like baking a cake to get it into the position where it can grow. Whereas like a lot of entrepreneurs are just like, it's just like day after day, just like proper grinders. I don't know if if I'm that type. But like I said, I think I've manufactured myself to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you might even be more natural. The way you jump around is like quite an entrepreneurial trait, I would say.
Yeah. Overthinker. ADHD cunt. So on that as well then, because there's a few things we want to go into. You mentioned, well, to me before the podcast when we've met before, like you'd taken quite a bit of money out of the business before you'd ever exited, which again we'll come on to. So I suppose two parts there. Like, at what point did the business get to a stage where you thought, fuck, like actually making some serious dollar here? And like, secondly, why did you take it out rather than reinvest it? Like, was it a de-risk thing? Like, was it to do with like the kind of the financial plan that you sort of just mentioned?
So we had no external investors. It was all like our own capital, which is like good and bad. So one, we had no money, but two, when we didn't manage to get money, it was ours. So from like year 2 onwards, if we did like, I don't know, 500-600k EBITDA was probably something that happened in like the second year, let's say.
That's insane for the second year for a start.
Yeah, it was so lean, man. We had like by this point probably had like 3 or 4 different products, but we had like no staff. Office was 300 quid a month. There's like a lot of profit there. So again, like if I did it again, I'd pile that back into growth because now I've like made my money. But back then, you've gone from having a phones for you job to running this brand that's making like a lot of money. It was like, well, we kind of could do both. We could grow it and also take the capital away.
Yeah.
But it was also like from an early stage business, you're like, this is amazing. Like the buzz was like insane, like how well it was going. And like, just like the excitement of it was just so good. It's still the best times are always the start, I think. But yeah, we just took it out. And if I wouldn't spend it, it was like straight into index funds, like everything. Like literally, we were like printing money, but it's like bang, bang, bang into savings. So then that was kind of like, again, like, because my goal was travel, that wasn't expensive. So if you have like, and this is like super safe investments as well, like I'm talking like 7% a year, like super broad index funds. If you can get to like £1 million in that, in this index fund, you're making 70 grand a year. I only really needed like 40 or 50 to live my lifestyle. So then you just like, I was like, you're passive from then on. Yeah. So, I mean, later in the story, obviously made a lot more money and built that even higher and became even more free. But you don't like, there's only a certain amount that one person needs to live like a fulfilled life. And I don't think it's that much.
Yeah, I mean,
for me anyway.
I will come back to the actual business side in a second. There's a few things I want to go into. But just on that, because like, maybe it's just my personality again. Like the second I made any decent money, I just bought a fucking car. I didn't even think, like honestly, I think I said it on a previous pod, like the money I was making drop shipping when I was 22, if I put that in Ethereum, I'd be fucking sorted. I'd have like 30 mil, like literally. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, whatever. But like, I don't know, like, were you getting like advice, or was that just the logical thing in your brain to do at the time? Because it definitely wasn't mine the first time I had
this like fear of like it going away. It was like a fear of like, we're making all this money, but what's to say that it's going to continue? Like maybe one of like the big conglomerates like Unilever or something make like a similar product or brand or whatever, or like, I don't know. So I had this like, I mean, it's not imposter syndrome because I was like, it was going really well, but I was like, what if like something bad happened? And I had this like, that was like a few years of that. So it was always just save, and like bang it in the fund, and then that's mine, you know? So it was like safety first approach.
Yeah.
And then, as I got older, it started to get a bit silly. So it was like, I got to a point where I was like, I've saved so much money. It was like, so I started to spend a little bit, but even now, like my life's not that different to when, like even back to like second year, third year of Hairburst, really.
Yeah.
What was your question again?
Well, it's kind of that. I mean,
our approach to the money.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you think as well a brand can be that profitable in this day and age, at that age, or do you think that was, you know, earlier on in like the e-com gold rush?
I mean, it definitely can. I would say it was so early in Instagram. Like e-com was around before, like I said, like My Protein. I think that was founded in 2004 or something like that, and it exited as we got started. But I would say that was it was very early in Insta. It wasn't early in e-com, because e-com's, like I said, been going on, but Instagram and influencers and pages and Facebook and all that was like very early. So I think it was probably like, you always need a bit of luck, and I'd say we had that because we were early, but we spotted it as well. So it's a mixture of both, really. Like, you find opportunities from being curious, and that's always been part of my character. But I do think it's possible now. Yeah, I see brands, like I'm quite an active angel investor now, and what I'm doing now is also buying brands as well, and I see super young brands being like super successful early still. Was it easier back then? Yeah. Is it still possible now? Yeah, I'd say it is.
Yeah, I want to come into wholesale shit, because I feel like that's an element of business that no one in like social media and Twitter and stuff talks about, because like it's all e-com.
Yeah.
Obviously you mentioned like 20,000 stores and shit. Like, how soon did wholesale become part of the business? Yeah. And why? Was there like logic behind it?
Yeah. So let's say, again, it's like, when I said about like, I was scared that it was going to go away, so I was like just hemorrhaging the cash. It was all about diversification. Yeah. So I was like building, we relied heavily on like Facebook ads and influencers. So for me, it was like, how else can we generate revenue? Yeah. And there's brands that I looked up to that were in stores. Now, they'd what you class as like real brands, and we was the e-com brand. But I basically compiled like loads of using Google Trends. I used to compile like a lot of like visits to websites for other brands, and I used to track ours against competitors, but not like e-com competitors, like real competitors. Like if you go into Holland & Barrett, that was our first retailer. There's probably 8 brands in that store, and I used to look at their Google Trends and like how their traffic mapped from like 10 years ago to now, however far back Google Trends went. And I could see our brand like doing really well in terms of like searches. And I was like, well, if that brand's in there, and at one point we started to get like more searches than some of the brands that are on shelf, and I was like, well, why can't we be on shelf? So I've literally printed out this full like map of like how different brands from like a traditional market are mapping against like us as an e-com brand, and why we're gonna surpass, and like made a story. Sent it to Holland & Barrett buyer, went for a meeting, got in, like just went on sales mode.
So it came from you rather than them to start with?
Yeah, but I think they were, in particular, like I've spoken to, it took us ages to get into the US, ages. And I think those particular buyers at that particular time were taking interest into social media brands. And now it's like, I mean, I actually spoke to a guy today who launched in 2019, which is not long ago. Literally met him today. Really cool brand. Yeah. He had a fairly unique concept with no social media, didn't even launch, and he managed to get straight into retail because it was a cool idea. Yeah. Because what I would have said, if I didn't meet him, I'd have said to you, like, brands today, like retailers want e-com brands. So build a good social following on any platform, whether it's like TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Build some revenue, like show you getting traffic, take it to a retail and they'll be interested. But then met that guy today, which is probably a one-off, but he did it the old-fashioned way, where it's like take an idea to a retailer, maybe they stock it and you just fly. Yeah. So to answer your question, why the retail and wholesale, it was just diversification. And we used to get emails from like proper wholesalers from like all over. Like we had one in particular was from Slovakia. Yeah. Just like some random guy messaged us saying like, can we buy like 100 units? And we're selling our product for like 25 quid. That 100 units was like, do you know what I mean? $2,500. So we just used to listen to like any wholesale offers at the time.
Yeah. And how much of a percentage then, I don't know if you can actually say this, but like back then and now was wholesale?
Of sales?
Yeah, of sales.
So they actually snuck up on me, and again, like if I did it again, I'd do it differently. But this is like probably well into like year 3 now. With like smashing e-com, going to retail, because you get like big POs. Again, I was so worried that was it going to last? It was like, if you get a big PO from a retailer of like a few $100,000 or whatever, it's like you just got to take it, right? But then what happened is what a lot of retailers do is they'll stock your product, they'll put an ad on your brand term. So like before you have any other sailors, someone searches for Hairburst.
Yeah,
we're the only seller, right? So you come straight to our website, or you get resellers on Amazon, but that wasn't a problem back then. But then the retailer will put an ad on your brand term and obviously try and generate the sale. Now that's like a mixture between that, but also then you get the shelf space. So if they have 750 stores, you get a shelf space. And what I noticed quite quickly was we're going to address a new market. So a customer who might be 23 years old on Instagram, follows a particular influencer, buys Hairburst, you've got shelf space, maybe someone a bit older who's looking for that type of product and chooses Hairburst for a completely different reason. So it was a way to generate new customers, but they take margin. So what happened was we grew revenue, but our EBITDA in the middle stages didn't grow as much as the top line because we're selling more products, but they're taking more margin.
Yeah, and how about payment terms as well? Because I did a tiny little bit of wholesale with the jewellery stuff to Culture Kings back in the day, but then they didn't pay me for like 100 days, and I was like, what's the fucking point in this?
90 days.
And they did their own pictures and shit, and it looked crap. I was just like, it's like that.
So we were okay because our business was still at when we started wholesale, it took a while for that. That's now half the business, but then it was a small amount of the business. It was still generate. That's why e-com's so good, because you get paid straight away.
Yeah.
Most retail's probably 90 days payment terms, but you can do something called invoice financing.
Yeah.
So you'll basically sell that debt, which is a good debt because it's from a reputable retailer, hopefully, to the bank, and they'll take a cut and you can get the cash. So that's like something you can do. So yeah, interesting. I definitely think wholesale, I'd like to try a bit more of it. I mean, well, I've done very, very, very little of it, but I guess on the flip side, I've read about brands that were like fully wholesale and then COVID hits and they're fucked, shit like that. So that was, we were like, my whole thing was like, be safety, like defensive first, like get revenue from multiple different countries and multiple different retailers, different channels, whatever. So what happened when COVID hit, like our online sales picked up a little bit, but then our retail dropped. So we didn't really benefit. It was like a 50-50 thing where like new retailers that were on board and like stopped, but then e-com picked up a little bit. So it kind of just like balanced it out.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like been quite good for us because loads of new retailers have started to onboard again. So yeah, you're right. Like if you go, that's just a classic case of not being diversified in terms of channel. And you could say that across like how important that is across like supply of products. Like you need to have multiple suppliers for your one particular product in case one manufacturer goes bust, or you need to have like, if you only had one retailer, you're at mercy of one retailer. So you kind of want to diversify your revenue, your supply, like everything. Yeah,
because like I know you mentioned before, like a brand that relies on Facebook or whatever isn't necessarily that valuable and all that shit. And that was definitely something that was true of like probably both my brands, but definitely Neon. So just spending like 15 grand a day on Instagram, that if your ad account gets to say, well, you don't have a business. Do you reckon if you, obviously Hairburst being like 9 years old, so on the e-com side, if you turned off all paid media, do you reckon you'd still, obviously not maybe to the exact same level, but it would still be much more consistent than, you know, a 1 year old brand that's just throttling Facebook ads?
Yeah, if we turned Facebook ads off tomorrow, we'd still generate. I actually don't think our business wouldn't grow as quick, but it'd stay flat for sure. Because like the Facebook ads now don't really impact the retail. Like people know it's 9 years old, you know?
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
So like...
Is that like people coming back to buy again, primarily? And it's like top of mind awareness and shit.
Yeah, 100%. And like when you can hit a critical mass, like I should probably know, but if I was to think across like retail, all the different countries we're selling to and the e-com, like how many customers actually bought our products would be insane, right? And then we make really good products, which is like super important. So word of mouth is obviously a large part of growth as well, which is like you can't really measure it, but you can usually see it in numbers. Like when something's growing like at a good rate, you can spend all the money you want, but if you've got good products, you'll start to see that kick on effect. So yeah, if we turned ads off or any marketing tomorrow, we'd continue to sell.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's definitely where obviously just age comes into it, innit? And having a good product
Age of the brand, yeah.
Because there's so many people as well in like the dropshipping space, and I've been there in the past. You can fucking throttle something to like hundreds of thousands a month, but then your ad account gets disabled because your feedback's crap and you're gone overnight. Your payment processor gets screwed.
But like we sell on Amazon as well, but it's probably only 7-8% of our overall sales. But Amazon just shut our account down like last week.
Oh really? Fucking
It's like, it's not a huge issue because like it's not, I mean 8% for 1 month, it's not ideal, right? And I'm trying to sort that out now, but it's not ideal. But it's because we've got all the other channels that it's not. I don't lose sleep over it.
Not much sleep anyway.
Yeah, maybe next week if it's not sorted, I might.
Yeah. So obviously, 9 years old. I want to come on to like a big topic in a minute, but like the past few years, how has the business looked then? Like obviously, in terms of like team setup, like general scale across shit. Like did COVID change a lot? I know you've got an office in Leeds. I think my mate's agency said they've actually got an office below you.
Oh really?
In wherever the building is.
Yorkshire House.
Yeah, he messaged me saying, "Is it? You should ask that Hairburst guy if that's the office because there's loads of fit girls walking around." That's what he said. His words. No comment. Yeah. So how has it looked like the past few years as a general operation and your involvement prior to the next step?
So we've got. So how did COVID? You said how did COVID impact that? So,
yeah, I'm probably asking like 7 questions.
So So how did COVID impact it? Which is really important actually. So like I said, sales didn't necessarily get a benefit or a deduction, so we kind of like stayed level. From a staffing point of view, I made the mistake of thinking like, well, we've got a great office in Leeds, we've got like staff in London, we use a co-working space down here too, but we made the decision to just hire people in region. So we're selling to 12 different countries now, and because our central functions in the north of England, we kind of wanted people to be based there, but we just opened the floodgates and was like, forget this, like we can't use the office anyway. So we started to hire people in markets like in the US, in France, in Germany, and the different markets we sell into. So that changed, which was a net benefit for sure. In terms of my involvement, was that a question?
Yeah, I guess just like how does it look running a business at that scale as a founder at that point? Pre-exit, which we'll get onto.
So you kind of, so again, like everyone's different. Like I kind of have this, I just went like tunnel vision a bit. So it's growing around you and you get like more and more people, but you're so fixed on like the numbers and the growth that you kind of just like, I always just stayed like quite tunnel vision. And sometimes you look around and think this is like sick. We've got an unreal office. It's like 50 people here or whatever. You kind of learn that, which is something I learned quite quick, is you can't, like I said before, you can't do it all on your own. So you have to almost learn. And again, like once we got to that stage, it was like I really committed to learning about how to actually manage a business, because you can't, if you've got an issue, you can't sort it because you have to trust in other people to sort the issues. So you kind of just become, you're almost like steering a ship, but you can't row, because if you start rowing, then no one's, you know what I mean? It's like, there's like so many people involved. So you have to be very patient. So say if I decide tomorrow, we're going to change this, that could be like a 2-month thing and I'm not involved in it. And I might be itching to get something sorted, because that's like quite a natural thing for a business owner to be like, but it's almost like a development in I kind of like focused on like myself and like grow myself again. So like when you go through the e-commerce stage, you want to learn how to do the Facebook ads, you want to learn how to do influencer, and then then we learned how to do the wholesale stuff. And then it was like, right, how do you actually become a leader of a business? And then that again, just like I've always like relied on books, so it's like probably quite common that people say that, but like I really did, because I didn't have a mentor or anything. So like Jim Collins' Good to Great, it's like probably a good one for you to read actually.
Yeah, I need to read more.
Yeah, Good to Great is good, because that talks about that and like the journey and taking it from like good to great. So I applied myself into learning about new different skills, I would say. And managing a board, because you've got like that comes with its own challenges as well.
Yeah, I mean, one little question on that before we move on. Like, what do you think, I suppose, like, even for me now, with this next business, like, I'm consciously thinking, like, I need to stop working in the business, I need to work on the business, like, even, like, pre-revenue right now. Obviously, it's kind of different, but, like, as soon as that launches, what should I focus on? In terms of trying to position it as a £100 million brand in 5 years, which is, by the way, the absolute plan. And, like, reverse engineering it.
Yeah.
I already realised that I'm way too anal on, like, doing everything myself, like, even fucking website stuff, like, but obviously there's an element of bootstrapping.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's getting that balance right between trying to do it all myself,
yeah,
and, like, hiring to grow.
Yeah.
So where's that line, do you know what I mean?
So when you launch, it's all about just driving traffic, which you know how to do.
Yeah.
So I just focus on driving the traffic, and then once you've got enough data, I would then start to, like, focus on what's actually happening. So you might drive your first, like, 10,000 visits, but what's actually happening? Like, what's your conversion rate? Okay, your conversion rate's probably, no one's seen it before, it's probably going to be like 0.1 or something, you know?
Yeah.
And then start to, like, make adjustments on the website, use the data that you've got, which is, like, this is all stuff you know, right? But
yeah, I guess I mean more from, like, from like a broader speaking, like, founder perspective, like, assuming I get it to £1 million in the first 8 months or whatever of 2022, which I will. That's the plan. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, over those months when that's happening, like, what should I be thinking about from, like, a broader perspective, positioning it to be able to do 50 million in 3 years?
So what I used to do was, right, you've got me thinking now. So
yeah, because I know I can do the first bit.
It was all about, so it's all about, like, making yourself redundant in every situation you find yourself in. So, like, going back to Hairburst, customer service took me 4 hours a day, and packing took me 6 hours a day. So I've got 10 hours there.
Yeah.
So when it's like when you think about, like, allocating the job essentially of building a business, allocating, like, time, capital, and resources. So you've got resources because I know you've raised some money. You've got time because you work on it full time. But how you allocate that time is going to be important. And, like, I agree with what you're saying about the customer service thing and investing time and doing it yourself, because that's where you get all your most of your feedback.
Yeah, at the very start, at least.
Eventually you'll outsource that, or you'll hire somebody to do that. You're probably using a third party logistics from when you start.
Yeah.
And it's just about, like, constantly reevaluating where your time's going, which I don't think enough people do. It's like, I'd really, like, focus on, and I actually used to do this with a journal again. I used to write this stuff down. So it was before I started Hairburst, and during, it's like, I'd just, like, monitor the clock. So I'd finish the day, I'd know that I spent 4 hours on customer service, I spent 6 hours packing, I spent 2 hours at the gym, and I spent this much time chatting shit with my mates or whatever. And then you just, like, it's a process of elimination, and you'll start to see, like, okay, and once the revenue's coming in and you're driving the traffic, it is a case of scale up, but it's all about your time. And I see a lot of when you're talking about, like, going for the next stage, that's ultimately what it's going to be about, is allocating your time better. Because when you've got revenue and you've got traffic, like, can you get more of it? Yes, no. Can you replicate what you've done in the UK in different markets? Yes, no. What do you need to do that? Get translators, hire staff in those regions, and just, like, a system process. Because you'll probably, what do you reckon? Okay, go back a stage. When you're doing previous brands, where does most of your time go?
Traffic generation, ultimately, and therefore revenue generation. So traffic generation and revenue generation. So I was very good at getting sales.
So you're monitoring the Facebook ads, which is, like...
Yeah, I mean, it used to be primarily that. And that was, like, where it starts. Because I think the one thing I'm good at is, in hindsight, is putting there's loads of terms for this, like, keeping the main thing, like, get fucking revenue. Like, so I don't know, I think there's a lot of people, and I've made many mistakes as well, but that is the one thing I'm good at, is, like, I know if there's no customers, it doesn't fucking matter. So, like, even with the first version of the first product I just showed you before, I know that's 80% there, it's probably not 100% there. But I'd much rather get something to market ASAP and start getting data now. I don't want to wait a year to perfect it just based on my feedback. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather we sell 10,000 of them in the first 4 months, and there's a lot of things wrong, you get the feedback, etc., and then we can iterate and fucking throttle it and go.
No, I agree.
So that's always been my approach. It's definitely been a high risk approach when it's gone wrong, because I just put, if it's working, literally like with Neon, it went to like 15 grand a day ad spend in like 4 months.
What markets were you selling in?
Pretty much only the UK and US.
Do you know what I mean? So imagine if you...
And it wasn't even localized currency or anything.
And like Facebook ads work in every country.
Like
Facebook ads work in every country.
Yeah.
So the only thing stopping you selling in France was... Man, I don't know if French people like neon signs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's a category thing. But if you could go from what that was to like the next like 5 or 6 times in revenue would be different markets, because you had a proven model, you had a product that people wanted.
Horizontal scaling, yeah.
Yeah, different markets. Because you only can get so big in one market, and you had a product, you knew how to do the Facebook ads. So you were literally, you're paying a translator away from scaling in a whole new market.
Yeah, legit.
If that's the type of product that they wanted in that market, I don't know. UK and US are quite similar, right? So that was an obvious 2 markets to go for.
Yeah.
And actually, like we really struggled in the US, which is a long story, but the US is almost like so big that like some US brands, there's absolutely no need to go into any other market because it's that big. But for the UK, all depending on the ambitions of the founder and what you're trying to achieve, but for something that's quite niche like neon signs,
I don't think it is niche. That's why I say I honestly think there can be £1 billion revenue brand. I mean, I shouldn't be saying that about a brand I'm not doing now, but I'll do that next. Yeah, coming on to, I guess, next section. Just the way I was thinking about this pod. The deal with JD, which I feel like is probably what everyone wants to fucking do when they start a brand, is just sell it and make a fuckload of money, go to Dubai for 2 months, or whatever you did. Like, where did that? Was that like a plan? Did you ever start to think about, we want to sell the business, or was it never even on the radar until a conversation started?
It was never on the radar. It was never a plan until after about year 5, we started to get courted by loads of corporate finance guys. So I just entertained conversations. I knew what some competitors were selling for, and it was like, we're doing quite well here, but if we sold some of it, we could probably get like more money. But by this time, I already was really wealthy, and I was making a lot of money from like investments that I was doing and stuff like that. So it was never a plan. It became a plan, and it was like a ruthless like 2 years, that process, because you kind of like JD had been absolutely amazing, and I'm so happy with the deal that I did in the end. But there's a good 18 months before that where I'm like speaking to different buyers, like trying to figure out which one I want to work with, doing DD processes, like telling everyone about how we run our business, which nobody really wants to do. Like, I didn't want to sit in front of like buyers and like spill the beans on like why we've been so successful, you know, when you've got and they might not even buy it, you know? So you kind of go through this process of like investors just wanting to know how we work. One, to understand if it's a good buy, if it's sustainable, if it can grow further, if they can sell it for more money in the future. So they are doing the right thing by going into detail. But when you've had like a private brand with your mates for like 7 years, to then have to explain for the first time to like complete strangers who you've just met for the first time, like how this business works, it's like you don't really want to do that, you know? So, and I can understand why an exit's attractive to founders nowadays, because there's so many examples of like good exits. But like, I'm no happier now I've exited than when I was not. And yes, the extra money is good to have than not to have, but I mean, it depends on the business. Like, a lot of businesses, especially like the new ones that are VC backed, it's from birth, it's its goal, because you've got VC investors, they need to get cash out. You're growing it to sell it. You're pouring all the EBITDA back into growth. You can't take it as a founder, because your VC terms will probably say that any capital they need to be paid back all their money before you can take a penny and stuff like that. Like, a bit different with what you've done, because you've raised money from angels with like your mates and stuff. So that's like really cool. But going on a bit of a tangent. So to answer your question, it wasn't the initial plan. After 6 years of graft and building a brand, it became a plan. And we then went through like a 2-year process of finding the right buyer. And right at the end, we found it, thankfully.
How does that conversation even start? Is it like literally like an email with a tempting number or what? To even get you engaged in obviously spilling the beans, like you said.
So first things first, and I've seen like, I guess we're talking about like advice for like brand owners that want to sell or might sell in the future, is you need a corporate finance advisor if it gets to a certain size. And there's many out there, like you have to pick a good one, because they are gonna, like, I was always quite independent in how I thought, and I had an end goal, and that's what I was going to take. But you speak to these people over and over again, and they do infiltrate your beliefs of like valuation, what the best thing is to do, and it's a really high pressure moment. And you're always like, when I was deciding to sell, I spoke to so many business founders who have gone through the process, who were kind enough to share their time with me, like really successful guys who have exited, and I was like looking for like anyone to help because I had no one to answer to. Not anyone to answer to. I had nobody to like advise me on what the best thing is to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like a big moment. You've built this thing for like so long. So how does it start? You appoint a corporate finance advisor. So I picked one that had done.
But I mean, is that before anyone even approaches you? What's the incentive to appoint someone?
Sorry, yeah, just go back. So we started to get messages saying from various different groups, like private equity groups first with private equity, because they're like all over it.
Yeah.
So like, oh, we're so-and-so capital, like we love the brand, we'd love to have a chat, So I started to have those conversations, and I was like, people are like starting to waft numbers out. I'm like, I don't even know how I've initially heard that like corporate finance people were actually like a thing. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if a PE fund, because I initially started to have these conversations myself, and then there were a lot of conversations, and then I'm spending, like, you know, I'm talking about my diary, like where's my time going? I'm spending like 2 hours a day speaking to like these people, and like they probably started to ask me stuff that I didn't have full confidence that I was making the most of that. I kind of felt a bit out of my depth, I would say, but at the very start of these things. So again, well, 2 things. One, I bought like every private equity book on Amazon and just like plowed into that. So like, how do private equity businesses think? What returns do they want? What's like the mistakes that founders make? Like that whole, honestly, that was like, just dived into that. And then I appointed a corporate finance advisor, and they did approach me maybe 4 years before exit. I'm getting a bit mixed up with the years now, but anyway, he was a guy who'd done like 5 or 6 deals in beauty that I really looked up to. And I thought, if he's done those deals, then he could definitely do ours.
Yeah.
And then when we actually took it seriously, I reached out to like a lot of the big corporate houses, like KPMGs and all the big ones, and spoke to loads of different corporate finance advisors, got all the prices, assessed it, and I decided to go with, ultimately my gut, with the guy that I actually met first, and I trusted him to help us find a good deal. So then their plan is, then you create a process. So make sure the information is packed together. So you've got all your finance information, you've got everything that they're going to want to see, like the investors. Then you go to market. So they'll start to speak to various different buyers, and you go through a full process of speaking to, how many do we, oh God, can't imagine, 8 or 9.
So are they going out proactively trying to then find buyers?
Yeah.
And this process was initiated just by inbound people that were interested in buying it.
So we probably had like 4 or 5 inbounds at this point.
Yeah.
And it was like a case of, they were like in the bucket, like potentials. But then what I realized about the corporate finance world is it's very small. So like the news of Hairburst going to market to sell is not like a hard message, because it's almost like, I mean, how many corporate finance advisors are there in beauty in the UK? Don't know. If there's a specialist, I'd probably guess, he's probably going to kill me because it might be completely wrong, but I'm going to guess, say 10. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, like proper specialists at like a high level doing beauty, let's say there's 10. And then they all know all the buyers. So like once one knows, the next one knows, before you know it, like all the potential acquirers probably know it's for sale. So it's not like they're like hammering the phone trying to find buyers. It's like, there's a certain amount of buyers, there's a certain amount of corporate finance advisors, and there's only so many brands. So they're all like, that's how these big corporates grow, they buy. So they're always looking. So when something's coming, they'll find out about it quite quickly.
And then, like, obviously it's a fucking long process, but like in layman's terms, are they literally just, are they dishing out like an initial potential number and then going into due diligence?
Yeah, so it's like a parade. So you get all the interested people. There's a lot of like chit chat, all this kind of stuff. Get a feel for why they want to buy the business. And if they're interested enough, it's like, okay, we'll go and present. So we'd go and present all over Europe by all these different buyers. We'd go meet them, do like a full management presentation, explain like how the business works, what we do, all the information about it. Then we get like some kind of indicative offer. So they'd say, the business is worth this, we think. We'd love to progress and get more information on the business, blah, blah, blah. And at this point, that offer means absolutely fuck all, because after it is when they tear it down. So what often happens is your buyer goes, oh, we think it's worth this much. And we all go, holy shit, that's a big number. Okay, yeah, we're going to tell you more. Like, we'll do due diligence. Like, here's all the finance information. Here's how we run it. Call after call after call after call. And then it's like, right, what's the actual price after that? So I'm sure a lot of business owners out there have had indicative offers, like, and rightfully so. Like, the guys who put the indicative offer in have probably only seen a management presentation. Like, how can you value a business without getting into the information? So that first one means nothing.
So they're going to tear it down?
I mean, it depends who you're dealing with. So it depends on what reason. So then let's just say you had a potential 20 buyers. You whittle that down to like 4 or 5, and then you let them in the data room. So that's all the information about the business into one file, like all the legal information, all the trademarks, the finance information. Everything's in this one pack. So everyone rummages around there for like 3 or 4 weeks. And then it's like, the buyers are thinking, okay, what's our actual offer going to be now? Like, how many people are going to be interested? They'll probably be speaking to different buyers. Like, we're thinking about putting this in, we're thinking about putting that in. Like, how much is the business worth? And then it's like, that's where the big posturing happens. So some buyers might go, oh, it's actually 30% less for this reason. And the reason actually doesn't even matter, because at this point, it's like, you've got a rough indication of what the business is worth. The reasons that they provide may or may not be legitimate. And then it's a case of like, then we have to choose like the buyer at that point.
Whose court is the ball in at this stage of the process, do you think?
Depends how many. Good question. So it depends. It's like anything, right? So it depends how many options you've got, really. So if you've only got one option, I wouldn't even go to market.
And at this point, did you care emotionally if a deal was going to happen or not? Or have you been tempted?
Yeah,
the carrots in front of you.
It was brutal. Like, so what we did was when I said it wasn't the plan to sell, like, my approach to selling was, this is the business, I'm fine, because I've got all this money saved that I spoke about before. So we'll sell it, but only on our terms. That was like the approach.
Yeah.
But obviously it's a really successful brand and people wanted to buy it. So it attracted a lot of interest. And I think that was the best position to be in, because I was quite clear that like, this is what I'll accept. This is like what I want to do. If you're in a situation where you're desperate to sell it, then the business is probably not, there's a reason why that is. The buyers are going to see the information anyway. So I think a lot of people like try and sell, like, and I've had it now, I'm a buyer of brands, I've seen it like, oh, this, I don't know, like ecom brand has done like this for the last 3 years, then it's done this, and now they want to sell it. It's like, well, I can see what's going on here, you know. Yeah. But we had like a really strong brand that was continuing to grow and got loads of prospects in the future. So who balls the court in? So for us, it was actually ours at the start of the process, but we had an 18-month process. So we did the first round and we turned down every single offer. Then we went to market again 12 months later. And we got to a place where we thought we'd accept. And there was 3 different parties that were involved at that point. So I had a good choice of what I wanted to do.
And did you ever think, oh, we could push this a bit harder for 2 more years and I don't know, double the money, whatever? Because obviously, like, you read about it, like, broadly speaking, timing is obviously important. You want to sell when it's on the up. Yeah. So did you ever think about that?
100%. And that's why we turned down when we did the first round like 12 months ago, we turned it all down because we were like, and it goes back, this is like more of a broader thing, but like when you actually consider what money is, like, so for me, it's access to freedom. So when you go, I was never too caught up in the numbers, but it's like inevitable, right? Because you set a business up for money, like everyone wants to make good money. That's like an obvious thing. But it was like, when you get a certain amount of money, like 10, 20, 50 million, whatever it is, like what are you actually going to do with that? And how's that going to increase your happiness or life? Like realistically, it's probably not going to change that much.
Well, I was going to ask you these philosophical questions after.
Is that afterwards, right? Okay.
But well, no, it's a good point.
Yeah,
but I mean, I want to come on to that after.
Sure, let's carry on.
Like, in my head, that's the logical next step.
Right, okay, so let's carry on. So
you get the few offers that you're happy with.
A few offers have come in. There's 3. I'm happy with the valuation. Now, there was 2 were the same, and 1 was different, and JD was a different one.
Yeah.
So JD came around through a different advisor, which gets really complicated.
Yeah, really.
So we had the common like beauty buyers, and then this guy, he's a really cool guy from Manchester called Paul, who runs a firm called Sedulo. And he was like, me and him, I just met him once before and I thought he was pretty cool, and he was in Dubai when I was in Dubai, so I was like, do you want to go for a beer? He was like, yeah. And I was getting quite frustrated with the process because this is like an 18-month thing, right? So I went to go meet him as like a second opinion. We got chatting and I was like, we've got some really good offers. I'm trying to figure out what to do. Like I was like using my network to try and get different opinions. And he was like, well, would you consider doing a deal with someone like JD? So yeah, we went to go for that meeting, but we had that one. And then 2 others that were PE-backed beauty conglomerates almost. So it was 3 at the very end, which was hard for me.
And you're going through due diligence with all 3?
All 3.
So to the bare bones.
Yeah, it was brutal. Like, it was so, like, I'm rubbish in the morning. Like, my brain kicks in at like, I'm glad this podcast is now, because if it was at 9 a.m, I'd be useless. But
we don't do morning podcasts for that, the midnight pod.
But I'm on calls at like 7 in the morning to like 1 buyer, then I'm doing another one at 9, and then I'm doing another one. I'm just like bored out of my brain. So it's like, that was brutal.
So is this become a full-time process for you at this point?
100%,
in terms of you're not working on the business anymore?
And this is a common thing, like businesses start to really suffer during these processes because you can't, there's a few things. So first of all, you're obsessed with like your monthly numbers, which is a bad thing. Like if you're obsessed with your monthly numbers, you're in a bad spot because
you want it to be growing
because every business performs better if you have a long-term vision. But when you've got corporate finance people like crawling all over your business, like watching you month by month, because these processes from start to finish are like a 4-month thing.
Yeah.
So you go to sell a business, you do the beauty parade, everyone's looking at your business, they want to buy it, and then your sales drop in that month.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows about it. So it's like you're in that set of like, you're thinking short term, you're monitoring the numbers, but at the same time you're doing the chatting to all the buyers, and that is like a full-time thing because you have to prep for each call. Each buyer might be looking for the business for a different reason, so you want to show that part of the business off. Like what JD liked about Hairburst was we had a platform for beauty brands. So if we can, we've got tens of thousands of influencers that we've used over the years, and we have all their details. We understand their performance metrics. We know which ones are good and which ones are bad. So if we can plug other beauty brands into that, which we'll get onto later, is a real asset. Now, other brands liked us because we could launch brands quite quickly through social media. So we'd explain that to like another buyer. So you're having to prep for all these calls and do them and run a business. Yeah. So it's a nightmare. For me, it was like a full-time thing towards the end.
Yeah. So then accepting, like, you go through due diligence, is it literally a case of yes or no to the 3 at this point?
It went right to the wire with 2, JD being one and another one.
Yeah.
And that was like a tough few weeks. I actually accepted less money on the deal that I did because I didn't like the way that Hairburst would have gone with the other party, even though I would have got more money. And I didn't really want to be in that private equity world with the Hairburst brand. Now, private equity is good for some things. Like I'm working with some private equity firms now on looking at different brands and like co-investing and all that kind of stuff. But for a buyer for Hairburst and the way that the business is ran, it didn't feel like the right fit. So I kind of went with my gut on that when I chose the buyer. But it was more about what it was going to be. And I believed in Hairburst being a platform for other brands. And I'm in control of that. So that was like quite a good new thing for me to do. Whereas the other one would have been, we'd have plugged into a bigger group of other brands and we'd have been helping like other brands, but we might not have been passionate about those brands. So I didn't like the idea of that. And
then from accepting, because again, in like layman's terms, because fucking no one watching will have done this. From accepting that deal, like to like effectively money in the bank, like how long is that? Because we kind of spoke about this in episode 15 actually, which was like a private equity episode. But so, obviously it's more interesting because you actually did it yourself.
So signed, so the last like few days is like hell because you're like, so how I dealt with the pressure of the deal was I just pretended it wasn't happening, even though I was on all these calls.
Yeah.
Because I always knew, like from our previous experience 12 months ago, that like everyone's just playing a game and anything can drop at any moment. So until the money's in your bank, it's not finished. So even until like the last few days, I'm like, yeah, it might not be finished. Like this might happen, this whatever. So I was kind of just like pretending it's not definitely going to happen because you didn't know what's going to go wrong. So, but then towards like when I'm in like day 2 towards end, I'm like, you can't ignore it. It's like I'm literally signing all these paperworks for like the legals. I'm signing paper for this. I'm signing paper for this. Whatever. Finished. You get a call from a lawyer that said. So I actually finished on a Friday at like 7 p.m. And I was like, "Is it done?" But no one said. But I was like, "I've signed everything I've been asked to sign. We've agreed a price. I know what's happening." So what happens is So the seller, there's 2 law firms involved. They're external. So we use the firm, JD, did some in-house, but also use the firm. So they send the money to the law firm of the, so who's like, so what would usually happen is they would send the money to the law firm and they hold the money. Now, because we finished at like 7 on Friday, I'm
like in escrow effectively.
Yeah. I'm like, has it gone there? But no one would tell me because it's like late on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if it's gone there, I was like, it's done in my head. But I didn't know if it had gone. So I'm like waiting for confirmations. I had to wait all weekend that weekend, like not knowing. I was like pestering the lawyers all weekend trying to get a thing. It's like, oh, I think it's been sent, but oh no, this is I had a call on that Friday and the lawyer said to me, right, so we've completed. They can send the money into the lawyer's account, but because it's Friday at 7 p.m, it's not going to be processed until Monday morning. If they send it now, there's a chance it might get lost. And I'm like, what? I was like, what sort of question is that? So he's like, your choice is we can send it and accept it. But he's like, and I'm like, what? Like you send it from a bank to a bank, it can get lost, not crypto. It's like, this is like real money with like real banks. And he's like, oh, there's a tiny % risk. And I'm like, oh God, right, fine. Wait till Monday and just send it then.
Yeah,
like,
fuck that. Jesus Christ.
So, and then obviously got through that weekend. Monday they've got it, and then they've rang, like all the lawyers have rang, like their side and our side have rang to say, oh, we've completed, like congratulations. I'm like, hey, when we get my money? And then they sent it on like that day and I received it the next day. So it was like we completed, it was almost like a 5-day thing.
So on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Was that a good Tuesday?
So my business partner I'm like messaging them. It probably received, I think we got like 3 p.m. when we're like waiting all day for it to be sent. I'm like messaging them, like, have you sent it? Have you sent it? They're like, yeah, it's coming. So it's like, okay. And I was just driving to the gym in Leeds, actually, David Lloyd. And I've parked up my car and I've looked at my WhatsApp and they're like, oh, I've just received my money. So I was like, okay. So I've gone on my phone and got on my internet banking and it's like there. So like, right, it's done. And then just went into the gym and had a workout. Yeah.
Was that like a good feeling or was it anticlimax? Because we always talk about this shit. Like, I can't fucking wait till that day. Get a big fat exit.
Probably be a bit anticlimax for you. I think it's like, don't get me wrong, it's a good day, right? But you're kind of on like, I didn't know how I would respond. So I'm kind of a bit on edge because I'm like, this money's coming in. It's what I've been working on for the last 9 years. Like, it's not the end to Hairburst because the brand's going to continue. I'm still involved and all that kind of stuff, but it's a big deal, right? But I was pretty pumped that day. pretty happy it was done, but I didn't expect it to be. It's not like I went from like 0 to like whatever, because I had the money saved, and I kind of, my approach to money was evolved over the years. And like I said, when at the very start, like I was so reserved my money and I wanted to save. Got myself into a good spot. And it was just more of that. And I kind of learned how to, it kind of happened slowly. It wasn't like you see some businesses, like, you know, when eBay sold, was it eBay that sold? No, sorry, a German version of the guys who made Rocket Internet made like a eBay version in Germany, sold it to actual eBay for like 40 million. It took like 40 days to like from founding to sale.
What the fuck?
So they went like bang.
Yeah.
It's like, God knows what that was like, right? But for me, it was like 9 years of like work. So it wasn't like I got rich all one spot. Like it was more exciting the start, what I was talking about, where like I can see it coming. So it was, I mean, it was more, it felt more like a relief for that process to be over, which took 18 months.
Yeah.
Than like sparkles going off and we're going nuts. So I was pretty chilled.
Did you do anything to celebrate?
So initially, no.
Or buy anything? Buy Cullinan? Honestly,
things I bought for myself since the deal, I reckon I bought an Apple Watch strap for £7 that didn't even fit my wrist, so I didn't even use it. And that's it. I'm being deadly serious. I've not bought a single thing. But what I did do was, like I've said to myself, like, oh, I'd like to get like a new watch to like, so I can look at that watch and go, this is like my deal watch. Can't be asked to go buy one. So I've just not bought one. Can't be asked to go, I hate shopping, so I've not done that. I took my mates on holiday to celebrate, so that was good. That was the best thing we did. Oh yeah, because that was like a proper celebration for the deal. But that was like that was fairly recently. So it was like 3 months after the deal we did that. That was really cool. Yeah.
Do you think it actually? I mean, you obviously read about this shit, like money changes you, it brings out the real person, blah blah blah. Like, I mean, obviously, yeah, you said it's kind of different in a way because you said you already have money and shit. But like, do you think after that, does your worldview change at all for you?
Since the deal?
Like, well, I suppose, yeah, maybe you're a bit, I don't know if you're a unique case or not because you already had made like stacks of cash and shit and invested it. But yes, I guess since the deal, because that's like the big one. Does it change how you view? I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to ask. Does it fucking change anything really, or is it just more access?
So,
like for example,
like a lot of people want to meet me since I've done that deal.
Well, including me, but I already followed you, so
yeah.
I just wanted to get on the pod.
So that's quite cool because you meet cool people. Like I like meeting new people, so that's cool. Like a lot of people are aware of it. I don't think would be aware of it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people know about that deal, but it was in like the Times newspaper and like loads of like old-fashioned sort of like deal places. So I've got like loads of messages from like a lot of cool people that I'm happy to go for coffee with and like explore ideas and stuff. So I quite enjoyed that side of it. I'd say like 0 to like 3 mil is like loads more exciting. And you start to have those sort of considerations. I think after that, it's just like, nothing changes.
At any level, I think. Like even if you made £1 billion, I don't know if you did, but I don't think you did. Can't comment.
Not that much. If you had £1 billion, there's a lot of unhappy rich people. I'll say that much. And that's like a common thing. There's a lot of unhappy rich people. And I think to get to that level, like when I spoke earlier about you drive to learn, like some people are just driven. Like there's billionaires who wanted to buy the brand. So I've met billionaires in this process. Weird. Like there's like something, like a lot of them, like one particular person must have been, he was like an absolute animal. Like he was still going like full speed, like well into his like 70s. And like,
fucking hell.
Like I admired it from one standpoint because I'm like, the work ethic's unbelievable, but I'm like, where does it actually come from? Because it has to come from somewhere. So I don't know if he's trying to, what is cool if someone's like trying to prove something to self. So like, if you have that motivation, you're trying to prove something to yourself, that's a massive asset, because you're self-developing. Like same way as like if you get into running, like you want to beat your own time because you're trying to like compete against yourself, and you develop yourself in that way. I think if you're driven by something that's external, it's probably going to be bad. Like you're trying to like sell more than a competitor, or you're trying to like, that's all just like superficial bullshit, and you look back and think that was a complete waste of my energy and time. But like I never had like a fixed figure or anything like that. So did anything change from that? No. Did making like previous at making like 3 million quid plus or anything like that change anything? I think I got confidence from it. I think as a person I grew in confidence, because I was like, I thought I was good at this, I've done it and it's working, so what else can I do? You know, like if I can do this with this brand, like what else can I do? So like I felt like, now I feel like I've been like successful, I've exceeded what my initial plans were, so I gained confidence from it. Trying to think on the spot.
No, I think it's a good answer. Do you think you've realised what actually makes you happy more since getting a lot of money? Because obviously, like, I mean, myself included,
yeah,
probably particularly when I was younger, but even now, I'm like self-aware of it, but I'm still fucking doing it. It's like, yeah, I want to make a load of money. But then I asked this hypothetical question to myself and other people, like, you know, if I got given £1 billion today, what would I do? And then I should probably do something along the lines of what I do now to actually make potentially £1 billion, which is kind of what I'm doing now anyway. I probably still have a podcast and shit. I might just have a Cullinan downstairs. But yeah, have you realised what makes you happy? And has that changed over time when like the desire for money has been removed? Yeah,
I'd say you learn a lot about yourself. That's a good point. You do learn a lot about yourself because you put yourself in a different situation, and it might have been the core driver for like 10 years of your life, right? And then you actually achieve it, and then you go, well, what the hell's next? And like everyone talks about the gold medal thing, where like people who, another stupid stat that I'm going to come out with, it's probably not true, but X% of people who win a gold medal get a bit depressed because they've aimed for, especially like athletics, right? A lot of, I don't know, let's just pick like rowing, or because you used to be a rower, didn't you? Like a lot of people who are going to be a gold medal, they probably started when they were like 3 or 4 or 6.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We're a bit older for rowing, but yeah, it's the same principle.
So you're so young and you go for that thing, you know? So, I mean, for me, it was, I'm spending more and more time now, because I'm not so focused on making money, like really trying to understand and answer that question. So like, what do I enjoy? I like seeing, like, I like engaging conversations with like interesting people. I like seeing people around me happy. I don't like to be surrounded by people who are like not happy. I like to help people. I like to see other people succeed. So like, that's where like angel investing is like exciting to me, because I get to hopefully see, like, be involved in like people being successful and being around that sort of stuff. I like to learn new stuff, and like none of that involves making money really. Like angel investing, you might make a bit of money, but it's not going to be, I don't do angel investments for making money. I do it to be involved with cool shit. So like my drive has probably changed a little bit since the deal maybe, but I like, this is like something I used to do. So I used to play, what I've tried to think about, and the way I process it is, when you're a kid, all you do is have fun. Like your decision making process as a 6-year-old is, when I was 6, it was like, I want to go play football, I want to play video games, because that's what I find fun.
Yeah. So
as you go into your adult life, like, does anyone actually really think that way? Because I didn't. Because my thing was like learn. Like if I'm at the gym, I'm listening to a podcast about business. If I'm at home, I'm reading a book about business, and I'm doing business. So now I'm like trying to play more sport and do stuff that I do purely for fun, and that's made me quite happy. So yeah. Golf at the moment. It's like sucking me in.
So what's the plan for you? Oh no, obviously you're still involved in Hairburst.
Yeah.
So, but like, what's your plan, I guess, kind of immediately, like the next year or so, but then also going forward, like Is there any concrete plans that you want to start a new fucking startup or change the world in some way?
Still figuring it out, I think.
It's obviously still young.
Yeah, so long story short, for the next year, so I'm now acquiring brands in the beauty and wellness space within the Hairburst group and with JD. So if we find like cool brands that we think we can help, we'll buy like a minority or majority stake in that, leverage all the stores that Hairburst has got, plus all the influencer contacts and everything else. So I've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 months. That's quite interesting, meeting loads of cool people doing that. Chatting about angel investments and doing a bit of that as well. No concrete plans to start a new brand anytime soon, but the startup phase is the most fun. So who knows, one day.
I've got an interesting question. If you, hypothetically, with the knowledge you have now, lost every penny, no investments, anything.
Yeah.
What would you, I guess kind of 2 parts. Firstly, what would you do? Well, how would you get started again? Because, a lot of people watching probably say, I've got fucking 500 quid. Obviously, you've got experience. And what brand would you start? Like, broadly speaking, just off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Like, what would you focus on?
So I
guess, like, what would you work on and how would you get the bits together to make it happen if you had no money?
Yeah.
But the experience you've got.
So we haven't spoken about this yet, but first things first is I'd assess myself. So, like, people might call it mindset or whatever, but trying to go a bit deeper than that is, and go back to my diary and like my analytical mindset that I've been born with it, or maybe I acquired it from finding interesting things, but where's your time? So like, again, it's like capital, resources and time. So it's like, right, where's my time? So if I'm now 20 again, and I'm thinking about doing a business, I spend probably, how many hours do I spend playing FIFA and COD? Right, let's have a look at that. How many times do I spend watching fucking shit on TV? I actually never really watched that much TV. I didn't really find it interesting, but I did play FIFA and stuff. So it was like, right, look at things like that first. Like, break yourself down. Like, what do you know? Okay, you probably know nothing because you're young. So start to invest time in learning, but you have to free up that time. A lot of people say they haven't got time. Well, you have. You might not spend, I don't know, I've got a mate who sleeps like 4 hours a night and he's like a live wire. Like, for me, I have like a good 8 hours. So I've got like 16 hours a day, right? So it's like, where is that time going? And I'd invest that time into learning and understanding things first, and assessing my expenditure. So I'd probably try and find a way to make a bit of extra money. If you've got a full-time job, like, okay, just simple maths, like do like a P&L on yourself. Like, okay, my rent's 400 quid a month in Scunny, probably a lot more down here.
Yeah, a lot more.
My rent's like 400 quid a month. I bring in 30k or 20k a year and start to like save and just have that mindset of, because if the first thing you're going to do is, if you make any money in your business and you're going to spend it, like, that's fine if the business is going to continue to grow, but I'd have that, like when I was doing the Phones For You job, went back home, I was living at home, I was paying like minimal rent to my parents, I just like stomached it. I think you have to go through that to like, and again, like, this is another story, like when I went traveling when I was younger with my friends after being between poker and like Phones For You, we spent like tenner a day probably was the budget. We lived in a tent together in Australia. Yeah. And I was happy as I've ever been, you know? So I learned how to live skint, basically. I think that's a good asset. Because if you can live at a really low level, then when you do build a business, you'll run it in the same way, you know? Like, if you have like a really good job somewhere and you spend all your money on like going out and stuff, then you're going to find it difficult when you build a business and start to make money to invest it in the right places. You just like, so I think that's a mindset thing, is the first thing I would do. Then I'd invest my time into learning. And to answer your question about what brand would I start, I mean,
like right now, where do you think is the best opportunity from an e-com perspective is what I'm saying. Yeah, and I want you to say what I'm working on, but maybe not. I mean, there's obviously more than one, but just your opinion.
So there's so much information out there now in terms of like, not only like learning from YouTube videos and books and stuff, but like I can, which you didn't used to be able to do when I started, I can go on Amazon now and I can find out what revenue like any product's doing. So I can go on, like, I can't remember what it's called now. You might know because you're an ecom head, but there's like apps you can get that
ecom hunter,
yeah, something, I don't know, is it Jungle Scout or something like that?
There's a lot of them. Yeah, Amazon AMZ.
So I can now go on and find out, let's just pick a category. Okay, detergent. I said that earlier. I don't know why I'm on detergent at the moment, but I can find out like how much revenue the biggest brand in the world will do on Amazon. I can figure out how much traffic that site's going to get through Google Trends. I can figure out all this kind of stuff. So I'd probably pick a book like Category Killers. That's the worst endorsement ever because I've not actually read it, but it sounds about right, where you're identifying a different category. I'd go deep into that category. So like brands like that big conglomerates own are like a faceless brand that's ready for disruption. So I would find something like that to go after. So like for example, with our category, it was a similar thing where there's lots of faceless brands. There wasn't any social media brands. There was no one doing that through e-com. There's so many things that are still, they might be in retail stores. They haven't been like digitalized or brought through e-commerce yet. And even then, like, you don't necessarily need, like, if your goal is what my goal is, which is to like have your own e-com thing and like live off that, you don't need to really create anything unique. It's all going to come down to execution.
Yeah.
Like there's many people who could go and like start a clothing brand. Like all you have to do is find the manufacturer. So all the skill and all the wealth is generated through the execution of said project, which is a skill. So you can acquire that. So I'd identify different categories. I'd get the information through like Amazon and Google on different traffic, sales, and all that kind of stuff first. And then think, okay, could we do something a bit different in that category, and then go from there.
Yeah. Good shit. Fuck. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we could go down so many different things, but it's been like over 2 hours. This is the long one. I feel like, I mean, there's a few different last questions I want to ask, but one question is, what's been the hardest thing, just from a personal level, going from fucking phone shop worker to fucking exiting a big business and making a lot of money and doing what a lot of people want to do?
What's the hardest thing personally?
Yeah, the single hardest thing across everything, the whole journey, if you had to pick one.
This is probably not very useful because it's quite a unique situation. But one of our co-founders got really ill in like the early stages of the brand. So he developed, I don't think he'll mind me, I've spoke about it to a few people, I don't think he'll mind me talking about it, but he developed Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, and we lived together. He was a co-founder of the brand. And he went through like, I think it was 3, maybe more years of like treatment and stuff. And he wanted to work on the business, but he was unable to. And it all worked out fine. Like we managed to agree a deal where we bought his shares out and stuff like that. So it all worked out fine, and he got looked after, and he's made great money from the business and stuff. But that was like a really tough time because I had to figure out that, which is not easy because it's, you know, that was like quite a difficult situation. And watching that happen and observing that, that was like quite a tricky time, figuring out what the right thing was to do. Trying to think of something more useful that might be more applicable to other founders, maybe. My lowest point was in the middle. So I wonder if, I think having an end goal is quite good, because the first bit where I'm making my money for the first time was like amazing, like the best time of my life, apart from my trip to Thailand when I was like 20. And then I can remember just like not really knowing and feeling a bit lost, like when I was like 26, 27. And I think it was like, we'd done the brand, we'd made good money, but like now what? And I kind of felt a bit lost at that point in time. I remember feeling like particularly not great during that period.
Yeah.
But then realigning myself and going, right, okay, we're actually going to go for an exit now. So I think I almost needed that end goal. I'm just thinking this off the top of my head.
Yeah, no.
I've not actually said, I don't think I've said that before. because the goals are always quite loose, but I think having a target to go for is quite good, which might be as silly as like a revenue target for a year or whatever, but I definitely got myself into like a loss period in the middle where I'm like, I've achieved my life goal, now what do I do? Which I think is what people allude to when they sell, but because that wasn't actually ever my goal, I didn't really have that. I had it in the middle where I can travel, I've got money, now what the hell do I do? And then figuring that out was like quite tricky.
Yeah, interesting. On the flip side, what was the most fulfilling part of the process? Which I think is an interesting question, because I think a lot of people are searching for that and maybe never find it.
So the happiest time was the start, because we were doing what I wanted to do, which is travel. But what was the most fulfilling? It's a much deeper question.
Gotta go deep.
It wasn't when we sold. If that's what people think I'm going to say, it's not that, because I didn't. It was like that wasn't like a. I didn't get like a euphoric feeling of like fulfillment from that. And even like when people go, or when I saw my products in the store for the first time, I honestly didn't care. Like it wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
Like when we've got, like people were saying like, you've got to be excited, like your brand's in Holland & Barrett, sat there on the shelf. I was like, I think I had a particularly bad day that day. Like something happened in the business that like got my mood down. So I've got into the Holland & Barrett store. I'm like, great, yeah, it's there. I knew it was going to be there. Take a picture, right? Okay. I was like, literally it. Like I wasn't bothered. Look, like, okay, it's not the exit, and it's definitely not the exit day. Yeah. But I think knowing that, like looking back at all the fun times I had with my mates during that period of time is like, as the years go on, is probably it's being more and more fulfilling, even though it's like that bit's finished. Like just thinking about it, looking back at it, I could even just thinking about it and talking about it now, I'm actually feeling like pretty good. So that's like, it's nice to know that's going to continue, because you can look back and go, yeah, we did really well. And I had a great time building that business as well. Like at e-com, like especially e-com, like you can get wrapped up in it. It can be super stressful, but like what a privilege this life is to be able to build a business from your flat and have the potential to get to an amazing size when our grandparents were going to war and all this kind of stuff, you know. Like what a privilege. And I think, but that comes from gratitude. It's not, I guess it's fulfillment, but it's gratitude, and that, but you have to develop that skill. And that's, again, since the exit, it's like looking back, really appreciating what you've gone through is something I'm trying to work on and developing myself. But I think that's like becoming quite fulfilling. Yeah.
Nice. I'll wrap it up with one last question, because I feel like I could go down a million rabbit holes and make a 5-hour podcast, but everyone would fucking stop watching. I've asked this to everyone now. So if you give 3 bits of practical advice to yourself when you were, I don't know, when you fucking started, 20 years old, knowing what you know now, what would they be in life and business? In summary. That's got to be worth its weight in gold for a lot of people.
I'm trying to think of something that's not like dead generic.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's a generic question, but it can be a good answer.
God, I should have prepared for this. 3 practical things of advice. What's going to happen is I'm going to go home in a minute and think, I should have said that. It's so much better than what I did say. Yeah.
Let's go with your gut.
It's going to be 3-hour podcast before I get this out.
Yeah, legit.
3 practical things of advice. I'm trying to think what I tell people when I speak to them about building a business. I would say, like, right, okay. So look after yourself, like number 1, meaning, like, when you build a business, especially today, like there is a lot of investors out there, like, spend time finding the right investors, looking at like term sheets, like proper term sheets, like don't like just look after yourself, because you're gonna come across a lot of people when something goes good and you just don't want to wrap yourself, like the amount of founders that I meet who have got like 10% of their own business and they've raised 5-10 million quid over a course of like 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, what have you actually taken out of this business? And they're like, a salary. And I'm like, what's your salary? And they're like, it might be a good salary by this point, but
yeah,
I'm thinking this is what you could have had. Like, yes, your investors want you to grow at like 100% a year, but if you grow at 50% a year, how much could you have taken out? And like, just remember like how lucky you are to be in a position to grow a business like this. Put yourself first. In terms of like the money that you can take out of the business. Yeah. Is that enough? Any more? Trying to think of another topic.
That's a good one.
Cause I
I'll put you on the spot here, fucking hell.
I see so many though, it's like, because it is easy to get caught up in the numbers, and like, especially when you see like on TechCrunch and all these other places, like so-and-so is valued at this and valued at that. Okay, that's another one. Don't focus on headline numbers. That's a big one. So I've finally got to number 2. Don't focus on headline numbers, because that is the press, right? Like, they want to get a story to shout about. Like, you'll see if a business is worth like 200 million, that doesn't mean that person has got 200 million. Like, it's easy to look at a brand and think it's like super successful, but it might have just gone through 7 different funding rounds, and the PE fund that's put money into it want to raise its profile, so they've got the paid press and more people looking at the business because they've heard the story. But what's happening to the founder is my point. Like, what is that founder getting out of this? Because they're the one who like built it. They're the one who like brought it to the world, and they should be looked after. But you have to look after yourself in this world, because people will. Yeah, that's a negative thing to end on, but yeah, look after yourself.
That's 2 points. I swear.
Final one.
Anything, personal, business, philosophy.
I think we've covered this a lot already, but like just like, so if I died tomorrow, I honestly reckon I could look back and think, if I had like the split 10 seconds before I died, which won't happen, I honestly think, like, I'd think, yeah, you've given it a good go. And like, I think about this a lot, because since my friend got like really ill, like, he's fine now. He's never looked better, actually. He's like, do you know what I mean? He's like, he recovered like 4 years ago, and now he's on top form. But like, seeing that and getting close to that, like, you soon realise like you've only got 80 years or whatever is the average age in the UK that people last. Like, just do be careful with yourself. Like, strive to be happy, and just try and take each step of your journey on building a business with gratitude, and be grateful that you've got the chance to build it, rather than like, just think about what a great position we are in 2022, where you can build these businesses, and just focus on that when you have a bad day, because they're going to come.
Wise words. Yeah, fuck, that was an interesting one. I think, this has definitely been the most like full e-com story pod I've done. Okay. It's fundamentally an e-commerce podcast, because I mean, start, middle, end, really, in my mind, and going forward. So yes, super fucking interesting story. There's probably loads of things that didn't even cover, but we've done like 2.5 hours, so I'm going to try and wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed the pod. If you're enjoying, I think it's like 99% male, so I always say, fellas, subscribe to the pod. We've got loads more lined up. Go fucking stalk Jimmy on Instagram or some shit. He'll have to turn his DMs off. And cheers for watching the episode. I hope you learned a lot. I certainly did. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.